G.I. Joe, the Real American Headcast, is the code name for Aaron's daring, highly trained headcast. Its purpose? To podcast about G.I. Joe, Fighting Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
Fighting for freedom wherever there's trouble, we're letting the sea and retreat! G.I. Joe! G.I. Joe is there! G.I. Joe!
Yo, Joe. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 64 of G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast. Before I get started, just real quick, just if you see, my arm's in a sling. Yesterday, I was out back doing some yard work and cleaning up stuff, and I fell. My knee locked up on me, and I fell. Skid on the pavement, skid in my face, and I may have broken a bone in my hand. So my arm's slinged up today. So for those watching at home, so that's why you see the sling. That's why it's there. But let's go ahead and get started with today's show. Let's start bringing in my guests. I've got a full house and then some today in the studio. So let's see who we got here today. First up, we have, let me see if I get this right. Made some new intros for some of the guys, so bear with me. First up, we have Kevin Reitzel, a.k.a. Raider Nerd.
That was badass, dude.
I was doing something else. I was going for one of my other guests, and I'm let me do this for the regular guys also.
I also came prepared. I'm wearing my Cold Slither.
Very nice. Yes, we're talking about Cold Slither today.
Yeah, they even though they didn't fare well after the Joes took over the stage, they did reform in 1987, and I got to see them open up for Whitesnake. So there you go.
Very nice. Very nice. So, speaking of snakes, also, because snake spelled sideways is sneak, whatever. Anyway, screw that up. But also, also joining us in the studio is Mr. Jared Albrecht, a.k.a. the Yard Sale Artist.
Bad. It's a prescription for danger.
A.k.a. Death Probe. Sir.
Classing the place up. Now I feel bad about breaking your hand the other day.
I was trying to keep that a secret.
Oh, my bad. My bad. No, man, it just occurred to me that I think I did my first show with you somewhere around 15. This is 64. But somewhere along the way, I might not be the real yard sale artist. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Also joining us, again, as I said, I've got a full house today. Let's do the other intro I've made today. We have joining us our friend from down under, David Finn.
He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. And he said, I come from a land of love.
Man, he's never looked better.
Yo, Joe.
You notice
Yo,
I put
Joe.
some bareness and bikini photos in there for you, David.
I was extremely happy to hear that and see that. And hello, Aaron. Hello, everybody. It's quite the assembly of people. So I'm very impressed.
Yeah,
David was hot.
Kevin, is David, hot?
Yes. Welcome,
And-
David. Good to see you, sir.
Also, my
Good to see
other
you guys.
regular returning co-host, Let me see. I don't have one for Brad yet. So Brad Abraham. Hey, Brad.
I will slide in. I'll slide into your mentions
need
and
to
say
work
you got to work on that. You got to work. I was promised an intro. I was promised a cool intro.
Well, this is your cool intro. Hey,
It
Brad.
is. Hey, guys.
Hey, Brad.
I'm going to bring in our next one real quick because, again, I've got a couple more to go. Another David Martell. Hey, David. We can't hear you. We lost your voice. Nope. Oh.
You hear me now?
There you are. A little low, but yeah, I can hear you now.
If
Seems like you're cutting in and out.
I would just switch to another device.
There you go.
And one of the guys from the role-playing game, Ryan Costello is supposed to be joining us, but he's running late, so he'll jump in here when he gets here in about 10, 20 minutes. And you might say I've got 6 people, possibly another 7 on the way. That's got to be all the people I got on today. But no, I have one more. Let me find his intro. And this is what I started doing the intros for people today.
We're Cold Slither, you'll be joining us soon. A band of vipers playing our tune.
Yes, Michael Hill. Hey, Mike, how you doing today?
There I am. Hey, everybody.
Glad you could join us.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Saw on another Facebook post commenting on Cold Slither, and I'm like, I've got to talk to him. Hey, Michael, I'd love to get you on my show.
And let's see if I can stand up.
Oh yeah.
I have
Right.
the new Cold Slither T-shirt, created by Terrence Muncie. Do you guys know that artist?
The name sounds familiar.
All right. Well, I met him at Joe Lanta last year.
Oh, okay. Very nice. So, again, thank you very much for joining us, Mike. I'm glad you could fit us in your schedule today because I was very excited.
The race is over.
Yes, I hurt myself. My wife's like, well, you need to not do anything normally. No, I've got people lined up. I've got, hopefully the writer of the episode is going to be there. I can't postpone. I need to be there. So anyways, let's get going today's show. So before we get going, I do want to comment. I just found out that apparently yesterday, Peter David passed away.
Oh, no, really?
Shit.
I just found out moments before the show, so I didn't get a chance to look into it further, find out what happened. But I did verify he did pass away. So I do want to send my condolences. It's not really G.I. Joe related, but Pad's a big comic book creator. I know he wrote my favorite version of the Hulk, the Professor version.
Yes.
Along with, and he worked on Supergirl, and me and Kevin were talking about this before the show. He worked on the Star Trek. He did a lot of novelizations for different
Spider-Man, Young Justice.
Yeah, he did the Friendly Neighbor Spider-Man, Young Justice, a whole bunch more. Yeah, he X Factor, I want to say it was.
Yep.
A lot of those novels you're talking about for the TV series. And
Yeah.
Star Trek.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Star
I know the
Trek,
name now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right, I got to say something nice about him real quick. And I know there's a lot of people, so I'll be brief, Aaron. But I do those sketches on book pages, characters
Really?
from the books on the. Yeah.
Never seen it.
Anyway,
Sorry.
there's an example on screen. He was at a Dragon Con I was at, and he was looking. He's like, "These are brilliant," and I was like, "Well, I've got some on pages of books that you've written, like Transformers, Spider-Man, stuff like that."
Right.
And not only, I'm always nervous about what authors are going to say when I drew on their pages. He was so cool. He was like, "These are brilliant," and he actually signed some of them. So, like, if you bought them from me at that convention, you got my signature and his signature. The guy who drew on it, the guy who wrote the words. So what
Very
a pleasant. I just wanted to say something really nice about it. Just remind the world. But at least to me, he was a super nice guy.
Very nice. Yeah, I met him at San Diego Con once years ago. But yeah, very nice guy. And yeah, like I said, very creative. Yes, he created my. I love the Hulk. He's one of my favorite Marvel characters. But I think his version, when he did the Professor version of the Hulk, that one was one of my
I think he basically saved that series. I mean, the series had been just getting burned out on Hulk Smash for 20 years, and he added a whole new dimension to that character. I believe he saved the series.
Oh yeah, so yeah, R.I.P. Mr. Peter David.
Wow.
Let me
All right,
bring
man.
this to the stage. Also, before I continue on, my background is courtesy of 3djoes.com, which I'll mention more in just a minute here. Thank you very much, Carson, for the background I've got displayed, which came from the Art of G.I. Joe that I know we've talked about here, extensively on several episodes, thanks to Brad.
I think Brad started
pushing it on me and
Jared, I know at least. Thanks and blame to me.
1 second. We lost David Martell. Let me bring him back in. Welcome back, David.
Take two. Is that
Yes, sounds better.
Yes. Good.
Again, this episode is sponsored by Big Danny Cool and Sean Adams over on patreon.com. It's patreon.com/headcastnetwork. And again, if you're watching this video on the YouTube or wherever, hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. I'm horrible at this, but yeah, hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. I'm here normally the fourth Sunday of the month. I'm here doing this show with a handful of these guys. Also, I do want to mention I spoke about Carson's and his Art of G.I. Joe. The Kickstarter is actually over, but there's, I guess, a late Kickstarter thing for the G.I. Joe Field Guide. I know I got into it, and I think David Finn said he bought into it.
Yep.
You can still get into it. It's at kickstarter.com/project/3djoes/field-guides. Links on the screen. I think I've got links on the Facebook group for it. Definitely check that out. It's a 4-volume set at this point. Looking at the action figures, he's got one looking at the carded figures, one looking at the loose figures. I think one's looking at vehicles. I forget what the fourth one is now. But yeah, there's different levels of that.
I can't wait for that, Aaron. Actually, I cannot wait for that, man.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and I don't need it, but I ordered it anyway.
Yes, you do. What are you saying? You don't need
As
it?
we were talking about yesterday, Dave, I have a little bit of an addiction. So thank you, Carson, for helping feed that addiction and then make me lose more money. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on. So this is a pocket guide. What this is mainly intended, like if you're out hunting for Joes in the field, if you go to yard sales like someone in our group does on a regular basis, I believe, you can take this book with you and you can mark down what you need. There's pages in there, make notes on. It's a very handy little book. So I can't wait to get it.
I did not need this one because I do not buy many figures or vehicles.
Right.
I'm more into like the mini Joes.
Okay.
But I didn't need the big ass book that he did with all the profiles, all the file cards.
Yeah, you got suckered into it too, huh?
Yeah. I have this one. So
Nice.
I don't need any equipment to train. I just have to raise the book.
I like the technical term "big ass." That was great.
Yeah.
It's European.
And it's very true, yes. And also, so before we get started with today's actual proper episode, one of my regular co-hosts didn't make it last month. Something about some stupid was an anniversary or something. I had to spend time with his wife.
Yeah, I was spending my anniversary weekend up in. Actually, we went to the infamous Clown Motel up in northern Nevada, and then we went to Reno, and so we couldn't make it that weekend. And we had a lot of fun and visited some friends and stuff. But I just want to give a shout out to this particular cover, real quick. One of my all-time favorite covers, pretty darn close to number 43 that I have hanging over my shoulder over here. I always pick up this if I see it when I see it in the wild. It's one of my favorites that showcases a couple of my two favorite Joes, and of course that's Snake Eyes and Scarlet in their classic uniforms. And I also got this one signed by Larry Hama. It's one of my favorites. It just pops. I love the colors in it. Jared, I didn't know if you had a chance to talk about it last issue or not, but I was just wondering what you guys gave it.
I can't remember back that far, but I'm quite certain if I was there, I gave it a 5.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd give it more than a 5 personally, but yeah, it's just one of my favorites. And I just wanted to give it a shout out because I absolutely love that cover.
Yeah, I either give it a 4.5 or a 5. I forget now, but it was up there. So
who did that cover? Do you remember? Was it a Zek?
Absolutely, it's a Zek.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, see, I forgot to upload that Zek by himself song. But
yeah, it's Zek and McLeod on that one.
Yeah.
It's not Beatty, but yeah.
but let me see real quick. Give me just one sec. Yeah, I don't have that one, but I do have.
Mike Zach Mike Zach with Betty Zach Mike.
Yeah, I've got the other one with Jared doing just Zach. Yeah, I don't have it up. I need to upload that one also now.
Michael, do any of these comics come by your desk at all? Do you mix with any of these?
No. I think there was a convention exclusive, I don't know how many years ago, that had Cold Slither, Zartan, and Gem from Gem and the Holograms. I think I've signed one of those.
Nice.
Very nice. Very nice. So did anyone else wasn't here last month want to make any comments on the last issue real quick before we move on? We were good on that one.
I can't even remember if I was there. Was I there? I think I was.
I think you were. Again, I don't remember either.
I was
Deja
supposed
vu.
to be there, and I was supposed to say that I like this cover very much.
Yes, I think I read your comments on. Yeah, you sent me some comments on that, Dave.
Yeah,
David, I wrote that on the air. So let's go ahead and move on to the current issue.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go ahead and bring my back to the stage. So this is issue 64. The title of this one was called Maneuvering for Positions. Before I get into the credits, well, I'll do the cover credits on this one is once again Mike Zeck and Bob McLeod.
Zach McLeod, Zach. That's all I got.
You leave me disappointed, Jared, as usual. But the cover of this one, for those listening and not actually watching, again, if you're listening to the regular podcast, definitely check us out the fourth Sunday of the month, and you can see the slideshow. You can see. I'm trying to make this a little more interactive, a little better for people watching it from YouTube. It's only taken me 10 years, but anyways, this cover has a close-up of Cobra Commander's armored face.
Yeah.
I guess it's Fred, not anyways, with Serpentor and Baroness up close, just staring at him, just both mad dogging what it looks like. Let's get some thoughts on this cover. Let's go and move this out of the way. And first up, let's go, Kevin. What are your thoughts on this cover?
It's definitely one of the better ones along this run here too, and it captures a moment in the comic, and I'm always a big fan of that when the cover does directly capture a moment. And I think too that the look in Fred's eyes just looks really, really cool. Kind of maybe, doing one a little better than Cobra Commander himself a little bit. But I love that we get a power play action going on here, and it's just three iconic looking characters. And it's one of those that just brings you right in. It's definitely a good one. I would give this one probably I'm going to go 3.5, and I'll go 4 out of 5 Yojo Colas.
And we'll do the stars when we're done. So I'll probably hit back with you. But let's go move on to the next one. I'm just going to my list here. Next up, Brad. Do you have thoughts on that? Never mind. Let's move on. Brad, do you have thoughts on this cover?
I do, and they are, as always, quite close to Kevin's. I think he and I are on the same page when it comes to covers. There are some very solid covers in this particular run, this 61 to 70. But I think this is a really interesting cover for 2 reasons. One, because, as we said off the top, it's just faces, which is, I think, a little unusual for this comic. They usually like to portray some sort of action, and here it's just 3 people staring at each other. But also because, story-wise, this is the first time the Baroness and Serpentor see the new and supposedly improved Cobra Commander in the face, like in the flesh or in the battle armor. I think this is one of those covers that's geared more towards the constant reader than it is some newbie who picks it up off the newsstand or spinner rack. I just like the composition of it. It's a nice, I like that 3-point composition that we see in things like Stanley Kubrick and Wes Anderson movies. And of course, Mike Zeck brings it here too. And I just really like the use of color in it. This cover, but also throughout the whole issue, I think is really solid color-wise as well. So it's maybe not as well known as the other covers, but I still think it's a really excellent one.
Very nice. And before I continue with people's thoughts, also joining us a little late, but better late than never, we have Mr. Ryan Costello. Wow, I screwed that up. One of my fellow Joes from the G.I. Joe the Energon Protocols, the role-playing game we do. Ryan, thanks for joining us, man. Can you hear us?
All right, try now.
There you are.
There
we go.
There we
Sorry
are.
about that.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for joining us, Ryan. I'm glad you could make it, man. So right now we're reviewing the cover. We're getting thoughts on the cover. So while you're here, do you have thoughts on the? Let me pull you up big screen. Do you have thoughts on the cover of issue 64?
I think the cover is actually one of the best things about the issue. It's not that I don't like the issue, but it is not an issue that I think of as one of the better ones in the run. But the cover is so striking. You can definitely see what they're going for here. Like within a couple of issues, they probably would have replaced Baroness with Destro because that's where really the three-way Cobra Civil War was happening.
Right.
But like if you are fresh from Toys R Us and you've got your new Cobra Commander figure, you see that cover, you're like, yes, this is definitely an issue I want to pick up. And it definitely shows the dynamic of these three people power struggle, the three-way power struggle at the top of Cobra.
Very much so. All right, let's carry on with the let me see real quick. There we are. Michael, do you have this issue? Did you were you able to read this issue?
You know, I'm now sort of embarrassed to say I've never read any of the G.I. Joe comics.
And see, that's one question I was going to ask you when we get to the cartoon portion. If you actually, when you were doing this, you read the comics or how that came about.
It was a conscious decision when we were doing the show, because I didn't want to be influenced by any of Larry's stories and have them suddenly become mine.
Right.
And I had heard that Larry never watched any of the episodes. And I finally met Larry for the first time last November at Assembly Required, and we talked about it. And he didn't want to be influenced by the shows.
Yeah, no, I talked to Buzz Dixon. Did you work with Buzz Dixon or?
Oh yeah. Buzz's office was right across the hall from mine at Sunbow.
Yeah, I interviewed Buzz there, and he said you guys would occasionally get issues of the comics, but most people didn't really pay attention to them for much the same reason you said they didn't want to be influenced.
Yeah.
So
in terms of the cover, generally, and not knowing the story, but generally, I prefer covers that have more action in them, as opposed to characters posing or, in this case, just standing so close together. Which put me in a minority when I worked at DC Comics, because that was my big gripe was, here's a issue of DC Comics and it's a character just, posing for the camera.
Right.
And then here's Marvel Comics and it's an action scene that tells a story.
Yeah, and the cover is something we talk about quite a bit on here. And usually it breaks down to two scenarios. Either it's something that's either directly or mostly directly from the comic, or a lot of times, I know in the late 90s, Marvel was good for doing this, just a stock photo that didn't really maybe have anything to do with the cover, with the inside of the cover. I'm sorry, the inside of the issue. But yeah, we usually don't talk about whether, action packed or just a face one like this. But yeah, that is a good point.
Well, Larry Hama said in an interview with Toy Fair a long time ago that at one point Marvel gave them the note, no more guns on the cover. And that just was coming off too violent. So one of the reasons we might have ended up with covers like this was because they had to find dynamic ways to show the tension without overstating the action.
Well, especially like the Punisher and Nam, things like that, guns is kind of the core of the.
I think it was specific to G.I. Joe. They couldn't.
Okay.
All right. Okay. It reminds me of I wrote an episode of Transformers, and my original title was 30 Seconds Over Megatron. And Hasbro said, "Oh no, it sounds too much like a war movie." And my immediate response, besides not agreeing to change it, was, "Have you seen the show?"
Yeah,
it's like. But ultimately, I did change it because somebody had on their own decided to change it, and I didn't like what they came up with. So I appropriated another title of a war film, use that, and it ended up becoming Starscream's Brigade.
Cool.
Very nice. Very nice.
Well, when you have constraints, it's sometimes the where you get the best ideas and the best work. Sometimes
Mhm.
not, but you can find some gems when you have constraints that you didn't think you would have to work with.
Yeah. And let's go move on to the next guy in line here. Never mind. Jared, what are your thoughts on this cover, buddy?
I didn't read it. I've never looked at it.
Moving on quickly. That's why I was going to skip you. I didn't figure you read it.
No, I mean, I'll actually look at the covers for you. It's as far as my love for the show will go.
Especially since, the cover artist,
Right.
You got to.
No, I rather like it. I mean, pretty much so. It's what's been said has been said. I just, as a guy who's done a few covers myself, really appreciate the use of space. There's no wasted space, and not only that is it's hard to cram 3 headshots that close onto a cover and still balance it and make it look good. And I think it was my bud Brad who said that he liked the composition. I think that's what he's getting at. Yeah, absolutely. And once again, smart enough. They, of course, Zuck's been in the game long enough to know to not put too much stuff basically above their heads because it's going to get covered by a logo anyway.
Right.
So it's smart design. He gets a lot in that little space and doesn't waste a single square inch.
Very nice. And let's move on to the next one. Dave Finn.
Oh, yes.
Hey there, Dave. Do you have thoughts?
I really like the cover. I like that it's I think it's cool how everyone's crammed in. I'm not a massive Serpentor fan, but it's great to see Baroness, and I think Armored Cobra Commander is really the big thing, and probably the way they did these, wouldn't he have come out in the shops sort of shortly around the time of this, potentially? And I think
a couple months before this.
Yeah. Well, it's great, sort of like synchronicity, and it reminds me that there's a classified Armored Cobra Commander coming later this year, and
Yes,
I'll be getting it for sure. Yeah,
yes, I've got it pre-ordered.
Yeah, me too. I enjoy the cover, and it's cool.
Very nice. And David, I think what I do is I'll call David Finn Dave, and we'll call David Martell David. Just try to think it's a little less confusing for me, at least. David, thoughts on the cover?
Yeah, I like that one very much. Although, as Ryan said, it was maybe one of the slower issues, so you didn't get many action. But what you needed to get from the issue was exactly that moment and these eyes. I mean, for someone like me who only knew the cartoon growing up, you see that and you don't know the story, so you just think, well, I didn't know that Cobra Commander was such a badass. I mean, he looks like a bad dude, but when I started collecting them, it was like in the early 2000s, and I could only find bits and pieces. So maybe I had 63, 64, didn't have 65, and a bunch of others that I didn't have. So when I got to read the actual story, it blew my mind to learn about all of that. But just as the cover goes, that's a great one.
Very nice, yes. And we heard from Ryan on this. Oh, almost forgot me. And like I said, this is a great. I think it's a great cover. I do love I've said previously, I started just a couple months before this, actually picking up the series. So I love especially since Cobra Commander, in quotes, Cobra Commander is making his debut on Cobra Island. I love that they got him front and center with Baroness, who supposedly knows what he looks like, and Serpentor, both just staring him down up close. I love the look in Fred's eyes as he's looking back at his two, in quotes, adversaries, or whatever they're going to be, as we'll get to when the issue expands and the series goes on further. But I think it's a great cover. It's fantastic. And again, as usual, anyone that's watching the show on YouTube or Twitch, anywhere else it may be, feel free to leave your thoughts, your ratings, and whatnot in the comments, and I can play them on the air. So let's go and get some numbers on this. Let me bring back, there. So let's go ahead and we rate this on a 1 to 5 Yojo Cola rating. Again, 1 being something that sucks, 3 being your average comic cover, and 5 being something that you want to display on your wall. Speaking of displaying covers on their wall, Kevin, out of 1 to 5 Yojo Colas, how many do you give this, buddy?
The colors really pop on this, so I'm going to go ahead and bump it from a 3.5 to 4 stars. A really good cover. One of the more iconic ones that you see, and it tells a great story just by itself.
Very nice. And Brad, 1 to 5 Yojo Colas.
Kevin is stealing my thunder again. I give it a 4.
And Mike, I don't know if you have a rating on this one. How would you rate this one?
Well, based on all of your comments I've been listening to, I'll definitely give it a 3.
Very nice. And Jared, we know it's got a Zek, so it's got at least started a 4. So
you got that right. Yeah, no, solid 4. I'll join the guys on the 4. I'll also do a public service for you, Aaron, because I know you're gonna have to edit this in post to, make a podcast out of it.
Right.
With 8 guys, we're picking up a fair amount of background noise. So do your best to try to remember to mute when you're not talking. And that will really help Aaron out on his background noise on his thing. I'll be the bad guy. I'm the bad guy.
I didn't even think about that. Thank you, Jared. And Dave, 1 to 5 Yojo Colas.
I give this one a solid 4. Yeah, it's cool.
All right. And David.
It's a 5 for me.
Very, very nice.
Because we don't get many close-ups, and you put that on your wall, you see it the moment that you enter the room. It's so intense.
And Ryan, 1 to 5.
I'll also give it a 4. I knew exactly what the issue was as soon as I saw the cover. It's solid.
And I myself, let me get back here. I will go ahead and I agree with David Martell, and I give it a 5 also. Yeah, it's very dynamic. It's very, it tells you what's going on. I love this. I think it's a great cover personally. So I will also give it a 5. So there we are. So let's go ahead and move on. So real quick, let me give the information on this, the credits on this issue. This is G.I. Joe 64. Cover date was October of 1987. The on-sale date was July 7th, 1987. I was 17. That was middle of my summer before I went to a senior in high school. Cover price was $1. The title, as I said, was Maneuvering for Position. Written as usual by Larry Hama. Penciled by Ron Wagner. Inker, Russ Heath. Letterer, Joseph Rosen. Colorist, Nelson Yomtov. I apologize for mispronouncing that. And as I said, the cover credits was Mike Zeck and Bob McLeod. And this was edited by Bob Harris. The synopsis for this issue. Fred arrives on Cobra Island, leaving Captain Min to be blown up by the new Cobra Mambas. Toy alert, toy alert. Serpentor, not believing him to be Cobra Commander, is trying to decide how to handle him when Baroness shows up, straight from Special Mission 7, which we will be covering or will cover, have covered on the previous Bravo team, which I haven't recorded yet. Anyways, as the Baroness is the only one that knows what Cobra Commander looks like without his helmet, they go into the helicopter together, and Fred tells her what happened. Well, an edited version of it. She tells him to put his mask back on, as they have an organization to lead. Meanwhile, the new Joes, which was introduced in issue 60, along with Backstop and the Persuader, are brought to a base in Utah. Seeing how their files haven't caught up with them yet, Leatherneck, the bit of the hard ass of the group right now, refuses to let them know what's going on around the base. In the middle of the night, Chuckle takes Psyche out to investigate the large-sounding vehicle that arrived earlier. They find a large footprint for the vehicle that mysteriously vanished. They then come back to the cabin to find it filled with Joes that came out of nowhere. And what's even stranger, they appear to be dirty, as if they've been working in a mine shaft. The final, meanwhile, Snake Eyes, Scarlet, and the Blind Master find themselves in France, where some men try to take their valise, much to their sorrow. So that is, let me see real quick. So that is G.I. Joe issue 64. So let's get some thoughts on this. I'm going to go ahead and go backwards this time. Let's go ahead and go to Ryan. Do you have thoughts on this issue?
So this issue is a combination of one of those issues where Larry Hama had to introduce a whole bunch of new toys, but it also, like, there's an A, B, and a C plot, and the C plot is Snake Eyes and Scarlet going to, like, save Stalker and his unit from the Barovia camp, which has been going on for, like, 5 issues now. So I think in that way, this is more successful than a lot of the, like, fine, here's what's on the shelf that hasn't been on the pages yet. in that, yeah, the Snake Eyes and Scarlet give us a through line that makes it feel like there is greater things going on. And the Cobra Commander storyline has also been going on for a couple of issues. So, yes, we get the stuff with the new 87 Joes, which is the least significant part of the issue. Really, it's funny that the main Joe storyline is the least significant part. And it also, like, it's weird that Chuckles and Psych Out are sneaking around trying to, like, Leatherneck is right in what he's saying. They don't have the clearance to find out what weird thing is going on. All they have to do is wait for the paperwork to arrive. So the fact that they're sneaking around, I think, shines them on a bad light. And likewise,
real quick, in their defense,
okay,
they last time we saw them, they were involved with they were a special team that, come to find out, they actually weren't on any team and they were being lied to. So yes, they should hold off and follow orders, but I see where they're coming from as far, especially Chuckles. Like, I've been on one screw up already where, I've been lied to. I don't want that to happen again. So yes, I agree that he needs to follow orders, but I can kind of see where he's coming from personally.
Fair. My main problem with this issue is the Cobra Commander story, where Fred shows up in a suit that nobody's recognized, nobody has seen Cobra Commander in, saying, yes, I'm Cobra Commander. And he's interrogated for hours and somehow has all the answers to their questions. And it's like, I know he's a Crimson Guard. He probably should know some things in case he ever has to, like, decoy for Cobra Commander or whatever. But it never really explains how he's able to so convincingly answer all these questions and why they're even giving him the time of day that this guy, who doesn't look like Cobra Commander, presumably doesn't sound like Cobra Commander, why they are so willing to hear him out. Also, I don't think it's aged well that the Pogo takes out 2 Mambas.
Well, liking the Pogo, I'm not going to complain about that, but I see your comments.
Do you like the Pogo ironically, or do you sincerely think the Pogo is an awesome vehicle?
Is there a middle ground? I do like it. I don't know if I'd say awesome,
okay,
but I do. In fact, you can see my shelf back here. It's behind my mic stand. I have one of the Pogos back there, so I'm actually waiting for the classified Pogo to be announced. But it's my own personal issue. Again, it's part of, as I talked about earlier, my addiction. But let's go ahead and move on to David, Mr. Martell.
Yeah, as Ryan said, this is an issue where you get a lot of things that are introduced. And what I like about it is that I think that it's been introduced masterfully. Right? I mean, it doesn't have to point out, hey, I am introducing this thing into the story. I mean, of course not, but I think that it's made in a way that is very beautiful, very heartful, and this is what I like the most about this issue.
Yeah, that's one thing we've talked about on the show. I mean, that's one of the constraints that Larry had to work with. Is Hasbro said, well, here's these new toys, introduce them. And except for Cobra Law, which we talked about a couple issues ago, thanks to Jared, he introduced all of these toys, and he did, for the most part, he did a really good job on bringing these new toys in. And I mean, there was a couple fumbles here and there, I'm sure, but overall, yeah, that's one thing we've always said, that Larry did a good job on having to introduce all these new toys. So
it is noteworthy that it's the All-Striker driver, Crankcase. That Crankcase is the one introducing them, because I don't think we've seen him since he had his I'm the New Toy issue.
Yeah, and it's and that's one thing that Larry does is, like I think it was David was saying, that he just brings these in without a big flashy introduction a lot of times. And yeah, Crankcase got introduced, and yeah, we don't really have a story with him anywhere, but he's just, I'm here. These are the new guys. I've been here for a while myself, so I can bring these new guys in. When we don't really see here in the comic book, at least, much with Crankcase. So I think that fits to Larry's. The great thing Larry did, on introducing these new characters, he brings them in seamlessly. And Dave, do you have thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, enjoyable issue. I think, as we've said, probably for me the more sort of boring part is when they're all getting introduced, but at the same time, it's necessary. I really enjoyed the stuff with Scarlet and Snake Eyes and the was it Blind Master or Hard Master? Yeah.
Blind Master.
yeah, I liked that stuff. And I really enjoyed Fred as Cobra Commander arriving on Cobra Island and kind of quizzing him, and the scenes with Baroness and him. So overall, a really enjoyable issue. And I do think, I mean, you've got to pay some credit to Larry for being able to weave all these new people just coming in. He's got to get it done. He's got to do it somehow. He doesn't have a lot of real estate. There's a lot going on in this comic in terms of setting up the other storylines as well. So, yeah, he does it well. A very enjoyable little issue as far as I was concerned.
And never mind, you didn't read it. No.
It sounds awesome. That's all I can say.
Makes you wish you would have read it.
Makes me wish I'd read it, to be honest with you. No, there's 8 of us here, so I'll keep it brief. I love Cobra Mambas, so that was cool to see. I love the it's always the Cobra stuff that's so interesting with the backbiting and the mechanizations and all that stuff. So I really dig this story. As I mentioned on your show before, Aaron, this is about the time where we moved to Germany and I wasn't getting the comics as often. So a lot of these are first reads for me. And I was like, oh, wow, Fred pretends to be a Cobra Commander. And I found out through some sources that goes on for a long time. A long time.
It goes on for a little bit.
Yeah. The only other thing, and I think I've mentioned this on your show, but it's been many, many issues, is it still makes me sad that they never made a toy of that helicopter that Mindbender and Baroness arrived in. It's very much based off the CH-54 Sky Crane by Sikorsky. I think it's shown up since like the very early issues.
Yeah.
And we've never got a toy for that. And it's such a cool Cobra copter. Anyway,
yeah, I don't see it happening at this point, but
not right. But like, man, I want to say that made its debut maybe in 1 or 2 or 3. Like it's been around a long time to have never gotten a toy.
Oh, I agree 100%. Michael said you didn't really read these issues. I'm going to go and skip you unless you have any comments on what we've said so far.
No. Having not read any of them, there's nothing I can offer.
Oh, it's okay when Michael does it.
That's because I like Michael. You, on the other hand,
you demand I read the issue.
Brad.
I have some fond memories of this issue, more for the time and place than the issue itself, because I think must have been in the 8th grade, entering the 9th grade, so I was kind of decoupling from G.I. Joe, but I still stuck with the comic, and it was issues like this one that, frankly, kept me hanging on a lot longer. And I think partially because the arrival of Fred 7 on Cobra Island, masquerading literally as Cobra Commander, changes the dynamic of the storyline in a really interesting way, and I think an innovative one. We saw this in issue 57 with Major Blood cosplaying as Destro. And, this has to be the big problem with paramilitary terrorist organizations determined to rule the world, is so many of our principal bad guys go around masked. So, there's a master of disguise amongst them. So who's really to say who is whom? I mean, you got Storm Shadow and Firefly. You got, Copperhead. And you've got all these other masked guys. So it's got to be kind of easy to sneak around on Cobra Island. Just put a mask on and say you're the other person. But, this, of course, all starts scene setting for the big upcoming Cobra Civil War storyline. Yes. So, that's kind of fun to see going back and rereading again. But I think for me, I guess we'll call it the Borovnia saga, is kind of the secret weapon of G.I. Joe in this run, issue 61 to 67 or so. It's kind of slipped on a bit by the Joe fandoms, but I think it really does a lot of nice lifting here. And I do think there's some really good action in this issue in Marseille. It's like this nice little 5-page sequence that feels like it dropped in out of John Frankenheimer's film Ronin, which, if you haven't seen it, see it. If you have seen it, see it again, because I watched it again not that long ago, and it has got some of the greatest car chases ever committed to film. So,
agree.
Yeah.
So I
completely agree.
I love the chase here. I love the Blind Master predicting the era of MC Hammer and Hammer Time with the hammer on the windshield. And I got to say, the Sam Peckinpah fan in me really likes the page 16 explosion where Henri and his mafia goons just get shredded by shrapnel in as PG a way as you can get away with in a comic book based on a toy line that features a guy who dresses as a bird. So that's what I got.
Always got to have the Raptor dig. Oh, geez. Why did I bring you back on? Oh, Brad, thoughts on this issue? I'm sorry.
Brad?
Sorry about that.
You're Brad, Kevin.
Yeah, I got the right person.
I can be Brad because Brad stole all my thoughts. So it's okay.
Kevin.
It's tough to go last on an 8-man rotation, Kevin.
Kevin, thoughts on this issue?
I just want to echo what Brad said about the blind master. I love that he opens up the bag full of weapons, and there's like a couple of Uzis and guns, and he goes for the hand grenade and the ball peen hammer. It's great. He obviously thought that through. Foreshadowing of the Defiant rocket ship. Am I saying in this issue? Because I haven't read ahead and I forget what's coming up. Chuckles' first appearance, if I remember correctly, too. I like that.
Chuckles' first appearance issue 60.
660. Okay, that's right. He makes reference to that issue.
He appeared there, and then this is his second appearance since then.
So going back to the introduction when Crankcase is introducing the Joes, I just want to say that Fast Draw looks a lot like Matt Tracker when he kind of with the Joes. He's kind of welcomed with the Joes at one point. That's a deep cut there, by the way. I love the idea of Baroness making a power play here with Fred, and the whole thing of her trying to gain more power. I thought was a really nice thing. But I really enjoyed seeing the Blind Master in the secondary arc that we got here with Snake Eyes and Scarlet, because one of the things that I like about the previous issue is it sets up this whole we're going to rescue our buddies thing, and I like that this is kind of slowly becoming a thing. And then we're gonna, see it play out in the next issue or two. And those were my favorite parts of the issue. Oh, by the way, real quick, sorry, I got to say something about the Pogo. The Pogo sucks. I just want to say that real quick.
Okay.
One of the worst toys ever. And I want to say these two right here, the Coastal Defender is better than the Pogo. Also, the Buzzbore is better than the Pogo. So I'm just going to say
that. Kevin, right here. Right here. Like I said, I fell down yesterday, skin up my face, maybe broke my hand. That hurt worse than yesterday. Just for the record.
I don't know, man, when he's down.
I'm telling you. I don't know. I just, as I've said previously, I started the series like 6 issues before this one. 50, I think 58 was my first issue, and so maybe that's why I've got a love for the Armored Cobra Commander. I think it's a fantastic look. So I love that he's front issue on the cover, and that part of the Cobra storyline in this is him infiltrating Cobra and trying to bring himself into Cobra Commander. I don't know if we've had reference before that the Baroness has seen Cobra Commander without his helmets or without his mask. I don't recall if we've seen that before. If anyone can remind me if they've.
I thought that was interesting too. Aaron, actually,
because I was playing catch up on the back issues at this point when I was buying this, so. I'm like, that's interesting that she knows what he looks like. So I do
perhaps,
like. What's that?
Perhaps they had like a little bit of a relationship, in between Destro. I'm just, I'm writing my own stories now, but
possibly that, or maybe when she first met him. Suddenly we got her first appearance.
WWDD. What would Dave do?
when she was a troubled university student thinking about like terrorist thoughts, and she met him, and he seduced her to the dark side of Cobra.
Off the top of his head, he's reading notes he has off screen. I can tell he's written all this down.
Oh, this is probably from his fanfic of
Yes.
It's a 12-volume piece I've written.
Very nice. Yeah, I do like. It's not an action-packed story, but there is some action with, like I say, the Pogo blowing away those weak-ass Mambas, and but I understand the difficulties with the Pogo and how maybe it's not realistic. I know we've talked about over on our Energon protocols, we've talked about the trouble bubble not being very realistic. And again, I don't care. I love the trouble bubble, and the Pogo falls in the same category. So great issue. I loved it. I love, the follow-up with Cobra Commander getting onto Cobra Island finally. The small follow-up on it's in France, but as the guys are headed towards Barovia. And I do like the introduction of the new Joes into the Joe base. And like I said, I understand. Yes, Chuck, again, I'm a big person, say, you should follow the rules. The rules are there for a reason. But I understand where Chuckles is coming from after having, been on an unofficial mission, been lied to. I can understand him not wanting to blindly, what's going on? See what happens. No, he's like, I want to see what's going on. I want to know. And yeah, this is a prequel or a precursor, whatever, to the Defiant. I believe that was the huge thing that pulled up into the yard that disappeared. So,
What do
very
you say about the pogo? So I don't hate it. It's not a bad toy. I mean, it looks cool, but in this issue, it raises a question for me. I mean, since it's a pogo, so it's about bouncing around and
right.
jumping. How did it get on the ship without breaking it? It doesn't strike me as very maneuverable.
Well, I think they carted it onto the ship, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
this
it's
is
wrapped up.
Pogo's first appearance, and I think the first time we see the Pogo, they actually carry it up a hill, and then he launches.
Yeah, so I think they carted it onto the ship beforehand, in between issues.
And I also wanted to say that I agree strongly with the fact that the Cobra Copter that we never had is really great. Would have been a great toy. And if you guys are in any way into 3D printing or have access to it, there's a version that you can find easily for this toy. So it's I hope you don't mind for the shout out, but it's a
No, go ahead.
Jabberwock who did I guess all the toys that existed in the cartoon, the catalogs, in the comics. So he's a very great artist. He did that in 2018, so it's been a while. It was
Yeah, if you want to send me the link, send me on
Yeah, of
Facebook,
course.
whatever, I'll put it into the Facebook group. Yeah, because as I've talked about previously, I've got a friend that's got a 3D print. He printed me the Cobra Commander hairdryer gun. So
I was supposed to print it myself and I would have it handy, but I didn't. It takes a long time to print.
Yeah, well, he's supposed to be working on the leadership of Matrix for me, but I haven't gotten that yet. But I haven't talked to him in a while, so something else for me to do. Anyways, moving on quickly.
I have a couple more
send me the
points
link.
I want to bring up.
Yes, sir.
So this issue has one of my favorite footnotes in any comics. So on page 19, when Fred has taken off his helmet, he's explained to Baroness what happened to Cobra Commander. And first he says, anyway, we met, we talked, I saw him without his helmet. One footnote says, yeah, in G.I. Joe number 58. And then he goes on to explain that Cobra Commander wanted to go with his son. And the footnote is an outright lie.
And see, I saw that footnote, and I disagree with that.
It's not an outright lie. He bends the truth in that's the reason he shot Cobra Commander.
Yeah.
But the stuff that he says about Cobra Commander wanting to go and be Billy's dad for once, that is actually what happened before he died. The other thing I just want to bring up, so I'm a big Backstop fan, and one of the reasons that you buy the issue that introduces the characters is because you just want to see this toy that you got. You want to see them in action. And boy, does Backstop get shafted in this issue. So he's in 3 panels. In the first one, you can barely see his head peeking out the Persuader, and they give him a green helmet. But as we all know, Backstop has a gray helmet. In the second one, it's when Crankcase is giving the roll call. And if you look at every single name he says, they are all like fully detailed and colored. And then there's just like a black shadowy head between Falcon and Law. That's Backstop. That is Backstop.
Yeah, I saw that too. I saw that too. Yeah.
And then on the next page, we do finally see Backstop from head to toe, from the back. But as you can see, his colors are wrong because they gave him Fast Draw's colors and they gave Fast Draw Law's colors. Yep. So, 3 panels. None of them are in particularly good detail, and none of them get his colors right.
I noticed that. And the ones they do show are the ones that were in the last the issue 60, and this one here, the new guy, barely pet him in there. So I threw some shots. Actually, I threw the whole thing here because I love the issue, and so we'll skim through this. We've kind of talked about the issue already, but there was also Kevin. You wanted to talk about this particular page here.
Yes, I do, guys. So one of the things about these comics is the Johnson Smith Company. I spent a lot of money on these guys. And they also eventually sent me the full-length catalog. I think their tagline was things you never knew existed, if I remember correctly. And I remember if you look at some of these things, they were mostly crap, but at the time you didn't care. Things I actually ordered off this, the X-ray vision, was just basically red feathers inside the lens, by the way. Midget camera broke after its second week. The ventriloquist dummy sale for $249. A really creepy clown doll that was only about a foot high, maybe 15 inches high, something like that, and broke within a month. The martial arts stars, the rubber stars, worthless. Just want to put that out there as well. And also that portable pool game, only about maybe 6 inches long, I think, or 7 inches long. I didn't read that. I thought it was going to be more like 3 feet long. Totally not worth it. And I got the secret bookcase thing there. That was worthless as well. But you were excited to order these things and get them in the mail. Part of it was like waiting for if you had a subscription to G.I. Joe comics or anything back in those days. Mail was a big day. How many times did we mail away for some of those exclusive G.I. Joe figures as well? But I loved looking through this. And by the way, the ventriloquist dummy, if you also bought the secrets of the ventriloquism, that was more useful than the actual dummy itself. I just want to throw that out there. But anyway.
I saw this. I thought about ordering stuff myself, but the pessimist in me said, it's going to be crap. Don't waste your money.
Yeah. And by the way, if you still want to know this, Aaron, the How to Kiss with Confidence and How to Meet Girls is still available for you to order.
Oh, give me 1 second. I'll be right back, guys.
Anyone else subscribe to these things or buy these things?
It's ordered. What? I'm sorry. What's that?
Was there anyone else in this panel that actually bought stuff from Jonathan Smith Company like I did?
Just you.
I know there's a YouTube channel that basically dedicates every episode to one of the things that you could buy from these kinds of catalogs, and I can't remember the name of it, but I thought it was a fascinating subject for YouTube.
I think some of those would be worth money if they were still in good condition, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds like you were the only sucker on this. I mean, the only purchaser on this.
Michael, you must have been laughing. I mean, come on. I'm sure that you had to see some of that and going, I can't believe people are buying this crap. You're on mute. Yeah, they're real quick.
Having not read the comics, I wouldn't have seen those. But I do remember from the comics I read in the 60s, which was mostly, Daredevil, Thor, Batman, and Superman. The comics, the ads I remember were, for like some kind of monkeys.
Sea monkeys. Yeah, the
sea monkeys. Yeah. I remember those ads a lot.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Yeah, you didn't wear it in the GI Joe. I was wondering if you read any comics when you were younger, or if you had. Comic. So
hardcore in the 60s. And I grew up in a small town in Vermont, and there was one of these. For me, it was just a normal drugstore pharmacy, but it had a soda fountain counter and 2 spinner racks by the front door. So I can still hear the sound in the summer of the screen door opening and closing. And my, every Tuesday or Wednesday, going through those spinner racks and just grabbing comics, and then jump on a stool at the counter and order a root beer float and pretzel sticks. And it was like the perfect day.
Very nice.
That's awesome.
Bygone days. All right, let's go and move on to the next section. Let's see anyone else say anything else about the comic itself. We'll move on to the Real American Hero. This is a Joe or Cobra or someone else that you think deserves extra credit or an extra special spotlight on them. I'll go in the orders there on my screen here. Actually, I'll go first since I'm first on the screen. Mine is, hang on 1 second. I got all this stuff and then I forget to use it. So.
The Real American Hero.
And for the podcast listeners, they'll miss that whole front part and we'll go right into this. So this is the Real American Hero, the Joe or Cobra that, we did something special. I'm going to go first. Mine is Baroness. Not only is, as Kevin says, she's hot, but also just for the way that she was able to, take advantage of the situation. And when she had presented the opportunity, Fred's like, I get the gig's up, and he takes his helmet. I was like, all right, put the helmet back on. We got an island to roll. We got, we're going to roll Cobra together. I just love the, she what's it, what do they call it? A boss lady or whatever, boss chick or whatever they're calling. I forget the name of it now, but
She's
Girl boss.
Girl boss. Thank you. Yes, she's a girl boss taking charge. You know what? We're gonna roll Cobra. Kevin.
I'm going to go with the blind master, just jumping out of the car with the ball peen hammer and just leaving the Uzis behind and dropping a grenade and then carefully counting it down. That was a badass move.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in this issue that could have gotten it because, there was a lot of people that did something special.
That's why I want to thank you for letting me go second because I know Brad was going to grab it. I just know him. We share a brain when we come to this show. So I just want to throw that out there. So,
Jared.
My Real American Hero actually doesn't appear in the issue.
Of course
but
it
is whoever the designer and tailor was of the new battle dress, armor for Cobra Commander, which might have been Fred himself. I don't know if he designed it himself, but I have to give it to him because he had to factor in the giant brass balls of that Fred when he designed that suit. So that's just a little joke to say that I'm giving it to Fred because the cojones it takes to walk in and be like, yeah, I'm totally the boss is incredible. So yeah, him and his giant brass balls.
Yeah, no, and I think the way he talked, I think Fred did design it, so very much so.
Yeah, he did a good job. I mean, he got his own figure out of it, which sold really well.
Oh yeah, very much so. 1 second. Okay, and so I know Michael hasn't read this issue. We're going to move over to Brad. So Brad, did you Kevin share the same brain or?
Well, I'm just waiting for Kevin to pass the brain back to me so I can answer that question.
All right, go ahead and pass it back over and you can answer.
There we go. Unsurprisingly, yeah, it's the Blind Master. It's Hammer time, just for that one scene. It made me laugh as I was reading it. It really brought me back.
1 second. Okay, and Dave, the Real American Hero.
I'm torn between Baroness and I guess the Blind Master. Everyone's saying Blind Master, so let's go with Baroness because she was very sort of like pragmatic when she saw that Fred was there, and she was like, "Okay, let's just get this done. Put the helmet back on. Let's go and rule Cobra." So I'm going to give it to Baroness by just a thread.
Yeah, I think me and David are sharing a brain, or me and Dave sharing a brain.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the Baroness and everything. Anyways, never mind. David, who's your Real American Hero for this issue?
I'm going to go with Zartan, and it's because of the cheeky comment that he made at the bottom of page 9 when he says, "Alas, Serpentor, you allowed your troops to get bored, and bored troops get bloodthirsty." So I thought it was a really cheeky comment just to undermine Serpentor just enough to land a hit, but just not too obvious about it.
Yeah,
and of course, what he did when he asked for the Baroness to
fight.
Yeah, no, I love that subtle dig. Yeah, that you're commenting on that. Yeah, it was fantastic. He's like, yeah, great job. And Ryan, do you have a Real American Hero for this issue?
I'm going to give it to Psych Out. Psych Out plays a pretty minor role in this, just as kind of Chuckles' accomplice.
Right.
But I'm mainly giving it to him because of all the characters that are introduced in this issue, I think Psych Out makes the most appearances going forward, except maybe Chuckles might have a few more. I think Larry Hammond just realized the value of having a battlefield psychologist there for exposition to explain what's going on, what people are thinking. And so Psych Out may be the Pogo of Joe's, but he's always appealed to me, and this is a good issue to introduce him.
And I got to back Ryan up on that too, because Larry wastes no time using Chuckles and Psych Out in special missions. So he clearly has an affinity for them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know Chuckles later on in some of the other runs would go and have his own series and do some big stuff. But yeah, Psych Out, that's a great choice. Very nice. And next we'll move on to let me bring up the screen real quick. The favorite page of art. This is a page of art out of the book that you would like to have, take home with you, hang up on your wall if you could. Let me go ahead and do it in the order. I've got it on the slide here because I forget which ones are which, so it's going to be a surprise to me too. But I do know that one of them 2 people picked, so we're going to go First one right here. Both Ryan Costello and David Martell chose page 6. So first, let's go and get David's thoughts on this.
Thank you, Aaron, because I think that Brian is going to have too much stuff to say about it. So I won't be able to do anything interesting. It's pretty simple why I like this page. I always like when they go from the generic to the specific. So I have a thing for introductions, and there's a very nice line in there when he talks about when he's going to introduce all the new people, and when he gets to law, and then he learns that the name of the dog is Orders. Law and Order, is that a joke? I just hear it in my head, like it's like you're in the cartoon.
Yes, very much so. And Ryan, do you have thoughts on this issue that you picked?
Yeah, I already kind of said my piece about how it's just fascinating how Backstop takes such a back seat in his debut. And it'll be about 4 more issues before Backstop gets any kind of significant role in the comic. But this is technically his first appearance.
Yes. Yeah, I almost missed as I'm going through there. I'm like, okay, it's all the characters from the original, from issue 60. Wait a minute. No, they introduced Backstop and the Persuader. I forgot they brought this. They weren't there either, though. So, yeah.
Persuader we see nice and clear. We got a couple of different angles on it, and we see it again later in the issue.
Right.
Backstop, not so much. I would assume that it's because the figure wasn't ready, which is why he was just a shadow like that. But then the next page, Possibly. They get him in full detail just from behind. So, yeah, the artist just did not care for him, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if that was Larry saying who to focus on, or if that was the artist. I don't really care for this guy. I don't know this guy. Let's focus on these other guys and see. I don't know. Be curious and find out why.
It's Canadian erasure is what it is.
So, moving on to the next page. Oh, mine. I like pages 2 and 5 also, but I'm going to choose page 3 because, again, Pogo and screw when that doesn't like it. Now I love the shot of the Pogo blasting off here and taking out one of the Mambas. And I don't know. I don't know what it is. I just find maybe it was in the first issues I started buying, but I find the Pogo an interesting vehicle. And I realize its limitations and how maybe realistically it may not work as I know when we first appeared, someone was commenting that maybe it's better as a space vehicle. I can see that, but I like the Pogo. Just something about that strikes me. So I picked the Pogo. Jared, you chose page 18. Would you care?
Man, I thought I was going to be joined by somebody. Was it Brad who liked this one? Somebody else liked this one too.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of great pages in here, so you're not wrong.
Yeah, I just really dig this one, especially the last 2 panels about how it goes from the danger of the blind master to his grenade going off, and just wow, tip of the hat to Neil Yomtov, the colorist, really sells that moment. You'll notice in panel 3, the threat is all muted one color. And then in panel 4, it's bright and expressive as they are literally blown apart. It's incredibly good 2-panel storytelling. So I know I get a little nerdy about the craft of comics, but I really, really think the colorist sold an already great moment.
It's understandable. It's kind of your thing, the whole art thing.
I've been known to dabble.
Yes. And I very poorly, but no, I'm just joking.
Are you though?
I am. No, you do some fantastic work. In fact, I'm always liking your stuff.
You do. I appreciate it.
I love your work. But anyways, that's another story entirely. Yeah, no, I was looking at this page also, but I figured someone may pick this. That plus I had to pick the Pogo. Moving on quickly. The next one, Kevin gave me 2 choices.
That Kevin can't be trusted.
And you know what? It's Kevin, so I'm gonna allow it.
Since I'm going before Brad, I'm going to go with the Blind Master just jumping out of that thing. And I love seeing the ninjas or people that had the ninja training out of their ninja uniforms doing ninja stuff. That seems pretty ninja to me, or an average day on the 405 freeway in the LA. So
yeah, no, very much so. And is there another one? Yep. Speaking of Brad, this was Brad's choice.
I know, right? Controversial choice. I was going to pick the page that Kevin picked, but I knew Kevin was going to pick it, so I didn't. I just have to say overall, this issue is, I think, really, really impressive art-wise. Heath and Wagner really do work well together on it. There's a lot of really nice use of blacks throughout the story. It feels, I don't want to say sinister because that sounds pretentious, but I'm going to say sinister because I can't think of any other word for it. But it just feels like things are getting a little more serious here in this comic, and the coloring by Nell Yamatov that Jared pointed out, I think overall is just really, really great. I mean, this comic has been in my possession for close to 40 years now, and it just still looks brand new in a lot of ways. Like the colors have not faded at all on it.
You didn't roll it in your back pocket.
Yeah, but the reason I picked the first page, the splash page, partially number one because I'm lazy, but basically I just liked seeing this image of the Cobra Mambas pursuing Captain Min's boat. It just looks cool. There's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of motion in it. You got the big water plumes blasting up on either side of the boat as it's trying to evade. You can see the shell casings from the machine guns as they're firing. You can see the missile in the foreground being launched. And I just like these, opening an issue or story in media res, as we like to say, where there's no setup. It just jumps right in and you're kind of getting all the information and kind of the recap from why they're there from the last issue on the fly. And it's over in about 3 pages. And I just really appreciate that fine bit of visual storytelling. And I just think it's a really great splash page on a really great issue.
Aaron, I have to run my mouth because that's what I do.
Really?
But I think what he's picking up on, what Brad's picking up on, and Brad, you may already know this, and plenty of other people here might already know this too, but for the listeners, this issue is Wagner and Russ Heath, right? Ron Wagner? Is that the penciler on this one? You guys let me know.
I read the thing. Let me look at it.
Hang on, I got the comic right here. Yeah, it's Ron Wagner. And Ron's no stranger to drawing the fantastical G.I. Joe vehicles like the Pogo and the Mamba and all that. I want to focus on Russ Heath, the inker. He comes from decades of Army comics, like World War II military comics. And so I think we're getting that perfect synergy of Ron being able to draw these fantastical Joe vehicles and then Heath bringing that realism. I think that's why you're getting the shells and you're getting the interesting inks. He's been an artist and an inker on military comics for like his whole career. That's what he's like known for. So I think just like this perfect mix of penciler and inker. And I think that's what we're picking up there, Brad.
Very nice. And that's you earned your paycheck. That's why you're here. Well, I say paycheck, but you earned your invitation next episode. No, that's very good thoughts. And that's like I said, they were all great pages. I don't think anyone was a wrong choice. So real quick, that's the ones I got pages from. I don't know if Dave or Ryan has a page in particular they want to. Oh, I got Ryan's, which is Dave.
I've got one, man. I've got one. Yep.
Oh, I didn't see one with the Baroness in the bikini, so I wasn't sure which one you were.
My favorite look, there's a lot of good pages. I also like that first page that Brad mentioned, but my favorite one is page 20 when they preface it in 19 when Baroness is looking at Fred, but then in 20 she talks to him, and then you see she puts the helmet on him. And then she comes out and you see Zartan give his like little comment about flim-flamming. Right. And she's like, the true Cobra Commander is back. I just think that's a really iconic page in the sense of almost the story turning as well, because then Fred now for the next, I don't know, however many issues, let's say 10 issues, he's kind of like the Cobra Commander. So like, so you know what I mean? Like the Cobra story sort of changes. I think it's really cool. As a fan of Cobra, it's an important page. So
and I love that look on Fred's face when she puts the helmet back on. That looks surprising. Yeah. All you can see is his eyes. No.
And I also love the fact that Zartan just does a cheap shot at Serpentor.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. I love Zartan. Yeah, he's got those snarky one-liners.
Exactly.
And I think that was everybody. Did I miss anybody? I know Michael wasn't into the issue, and I think that's everybody. Okay. So next issue we're moving on, or next section we're moving on to is Postbox the Pit. Due for time, the only thing we go over Postbox the Pit is the Patreon. Again, patreon.com/headcastnetwork. Over there we have Gene Hendricks and Bill Bear. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, Sean Adams and Big Danny Cool Again, that's patreon.com/headcastnetwork. If you like what I'm doing here, head over there and throw a few bucks in the tin. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. And then we're going to move on to the Soldier of the Month. The Soldier of the Month is someone that's done something for the G.I. Joe community, G.I. Joe, or for me in particular, because again, I'm not above bribery because I'm a bit of a petty. Anyways, this month I am going to have to give the Soldier of the Month to James Von Werner. He runs another G.I. Joe group out there. And I mentioned previously, I think, that the Hasbro sucks when it comes to distribution. I know they had the crystal ball action figure, and it was in my cart. But before I got my chance to put my credit card in, it was sold out. Same way when we were at Walmart, had the same thing happen. So I missed out on the crystal ball. He sent me a message the other day, like, hey, it's back in stock at Walmart. So I was finally able to pre-order a crystal ball, thanks to James. So that's why he's the Soldier of the Month.
Rock on.
To our Soldier of the Month from all of us here at G.I. Joe, a Royal American Headcast, in the Headcast Studios, we salute you. Okay, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the cartoon.
I just have to say one quick thing.
Yes, sir.
I have to unfortunately hit the eject button here, as I have a 9-year-old scout currently going all Lord of the Flies with his troop out in the woods. So I have to go launch a rescue mission. But I just want to say, as always, Aaron, thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm glad you made it.
Michael, thank you for writing an all-time great episode of G.I. Joe that has delighted generations of us for, since the 1980s. And Kevin, please take good care of my brain, but please stop kicking it around your Megaforce man cave. But until then,
see you, Brad.
Adios.
Bye, Brad.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good day, man. So,
See you, Brad.
Now that Brad's gone, we can actually get to start with the main important part of the show. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And I forgot to load those into here also. I'll do those for next time. But
I'll plug Longbox Crusade if you want.
Well, I got promos, but I was going to put the in and outs to the cartoon in here, but I forgot to do that. But I will throw a promo in there for your show, of course, and for Brad's show and Kevin's show.
Everyone should listen to Signal of Doom as well.
Yeah,
there's a promo.
So,
heck yes.
So, and then we'll come back from the show and we'll go to the cartoon like normal. So, let me bring the power of the slide back up. And I forgot to do this. So, welcome back from the break. Before we get to the show, the next part of the show, I forgot to bring this up before I went to commercial break. These are the places you can find us. Facebook.com/groups/GI Joe. That's where I do most of my stuff at. X.com/GI Joe Headcast. I tend to ignore that one. I don't think about that. And, I need to put someone there too. Patreon.com/Headcast Network. Instagram.com/Headcast Network. Again, I tend to ignore that one unless I'm not thinking about it. Twitch.tv/Brotherhead69. I've been streaming the shows over there also now. YouTube.com/@g.i.joe_headcast. That's where you can watch the show when we broadcast it the fourth Friday of every month. And finally, you can email me at gijoe@headspeaks.com. That's gijoe@headspeaks.com. Send me your thoughts. Let me know how wrong Jared is on his thoughts. Anything you want. And
yeah.
But yeah, like we've talked about previously, I don't have a Blue Skies yet because, again, it's just another account for me to ignore. So, but moving on from there, the Soldier of the Month, there we are. So now we're here for the cartoon. Just 1 second.
Yo, Joe! He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe is there. It's G.I. Joe against Cobra the enemy, fighting to save the day. He never gives up, he's always there, fighting for freedom over land and air. G.I. Joe! G.I. Joe is there.
G.I. Joe is the code name for America's daring, highly trained Special Mission Force. Its purpose, to defend human freedom against Cobra, a ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world.
He never gives up, he'll stay till the fight's won. G.I. Joe will dare. G.I. Joe, American hero. G.I. Joe.
And as a special bonus,
Action! Action! We're Cold Slither, you'll be joining us soon. A band of vipers playing our tune. With an iron fist and a reptile's hiss, we shall rule. We're tired of words, we've heard it before. We're not gonna play the game no more. Don't tell us what's right, don't tell us what's wrong. To learn to resist, 'cause Cobra is strong. We're Cold Slither, heavy metal machine. Through the eyes of the laser, keep you real free. With the venom stings, and new order brings our control. We're tired of words, we've heard it before. We're not gonna play the game no more. Don't tell us what's right, don't tell us what's wrong. To learn to resist, 'cause Cobra is strong.
and I'm sure I'm gonna get copyright notices like crazy on that, but
That was awesome.
speaking of Cold Slither, let me give a quick recap of the episode, I guess, and then we'll talk more about it. So again, this was Cold Slither, directed by John Gibbs, Terry Lennon. Well, John Gibbs and Terry Lennon. The writer was none other than Michael Charles Hill. This first aired December the 2nd, 1985. And the synopsis from Wikipedia. After Cobra is disbanded, Destro invents a subliminal enslavement program to bend the will of the population to Cobra's way of thinking. Zartan and the Dreadnoks form a rock band called Cold Slither to perform music with subliminal messages as part of Cobra taking control of the minds of the masses. But Breaker, Footloose, and Shipwreck get caught up in the music, go to the concert, forcing the Joes to pursue them and put a stop to Cobra. That is Cold Slither. So I was debating how to do this since we actually have the writer here. So first I want to start with Michael. What do you think about this episode? No, I'm joking. Yeah, do you have, what are your initial thoughts on your writing process or whatever for this episode? Do you remember much about this at the time, or was it just a paycheck for you?
I mean, a little bit. First of all, it was the first G.I. Joe episode that I wrote.
And yeah, according to my notes, real quick, I found you also did, pull it back up real quick. It looks like you did Ninja Holiday and Into Your 10 I Will Silently Creep, which was co-written by Buzz Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the D series, you had An Officer and a Viperman and Shadow of a Doubt. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And then you did an episode of Gem, Out of the Past. And then Transformers, you did The Gambler, Starscream's Brigade, which you referred to earlier, The Bird and Harsh the Bear, The Killing Jar, which was, according to this, was co-written with Joey Piedra. I'm not going to try pronouncing his name, so I'm going to butcher it.
Kurihara Piedra.
Okay, I knew I'd butcher that. And The Return of Optimus Prime, Part 1. According to this, it was the story was created by Mark Wolfman. Oh, Part 2. Okay, yeah. I think it's Wikipedia. It's got listed as Part 1. The story is, you did the teleplay, according to this, and the story is created by Marv Wolfman and Sherry Wilkerson,
yeah.
Yeah, I love that Return of Optimus Prime. That was a great one of the greats for the Transformers. But so yeah, so I guess real quick, I wanted to ask one of the questions I wanted to ask is how did the writing process for this go? I mean, were you in a room with a bunch of other writers and you just took the lead, or was it something you wrote by yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the process for all of these things is that whether you're a solo writer or your team, is a story editor will ask you to pitch a minimum number of ideas. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 5, and just premises. Typically a page long, certainly no more than a page and a half. So what invariably always happened to me, and maybe it happens to other writers, is I'll always be one story short. I'll have focused on really thinking out very carefully beginning, middle, and end, and still, just writing it as a premise. But a story I'm excited about, and I know exactly how I'm going to tell it. And then I'm one short, and then I just come up with a throwaway idea that maybe is a paragraph long that I don't know how I'm going to tell, but I just want to make my minimum number that the story editor wants. And what happens more often than not to me is they pick the throwaway idea. So Cold Slither was the throwaway idea.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, oh, great. Now I got to write this goddamn thing. So, basically I remember that it was, it was just a take on the Pied Piper story. And so I wanted to have a little fun with it. I want to kind of do something different than, what the other writers were doing, which seemed like was always about, G.I. Joe having to retrieve something before Cobra, and it's three separate pieces, and they got to go all over the world to get these three pieces, one piece per act. But in my pitch was the idea of, they're going to perform this song. So the other thing I remember is that we were doing Gem at the same time. And because Sunbow had hired a couple of women to write all the songs for Gem, when it came time to write a Gem script, you literally would write insert song here. So I did the same thing for my Joe script. And I remember Tom Griffin and Joe Bacall, who owned Sunbow, and they were based out of New York, because that's where their advertising agency was, would probably come into LA about once a month. It was a Friday afternoon. They show up. Joe comes into my office and says, "Where's the song?" What do you mean? He said, "Well, it was your idea to have a song in here. I'm not going to pay somebody to write it. You have to write it." So I went, "Great. I'm not a songwriter." So I went home Friday night, and over the weekend, I realized, well, it doesn't have to be a good song, because I'm making fun of heavy metal music. All I have to do is write a bad heavy metal song. So I wrote up the lyrics. I was listening to a lot of instrumental music that because I was looking for something that sounded like what I was hearing in my head. My ex-wife played the piano, so I played some music for her and said, can you do something on the piano so we put this audio tape together to give to Joe. So we did that, turned the tape in. Joe doesn't want to use the music that my wife had come up with, because Rob Walsh was already under contract. So I did the same thing for Rob. As I put together a mixtape of different kind of music, I said that this is what I'm hearing in my head. If you can come up with something like that, that would be great. And so his first shot was the music that you hear on the TV show.
Wow.
And at the time, I assumed, and for many years, decades later, that that episode would be the fans of the TV series' least favorite episode, because it wasn't a traditional Joe story. And I became a member of BMI for writing this song, and I ended up in the first year making more money in royalties than I got paid to write the script, and I got paid really well to write the script. But yeah, for I'd say almost 40 years, I had no idea that that it was a popular episode and the song was popular, because apparently I failed miserably trying to write a bad heavy metal song. But I was doing Toylanta last March, and one of the vendors came up to me and said that Cold Slither was his ringtone on his phone. So yeah, a complete surprise to me that Cold Slither had any traction whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it's big in the GI Joe. I know most people I talk to, that's one of the ones they remember most.
Oh, it's big. It's big.
Yeah, and that's how I got invited to my first GI Joe convention, which was November 23 for Assembly Required. I was talking with Brian. I connected with Brian Sauer because I was really impressed by his graphic design work that he uses to promote the convention. You know, he just raises the bar. I mean, he's the gold standard as far as I'm concerned.
Aaron, can I jump in with a question? Because I have to ask the question that I think a lot of fans of heavy metal music during the 80s would love to ask Michael.
Sure, go ahead.
Myself too, because one of the podcasts that I host on our Fandom Podcast Network is the Hair Metal Podcast. And we specifically cover the bands that were popular or made some type of note of popularity from 1980 through like the early 90s before grunge killed it. I have to ask you, was there a certain band that you guys kind of modeled or you were writing lyrics for that may have somewhat inspired you? Or did you just, see a bunch of MTV and go, I can make fun of this?
The latter. Because I was, to be perfectly clear, and I don't want to upset anybody, I hated heavy metal music. I came of age as a music fan in the 60s. So, it started with the Beatles. I saw them live on Ed Sullivan in 1964. So the music that was considered rock and roll music of the mid to late 60s, that's where my heart was at. And when I finally moved to Southern California and LA, the clubs that those bands I used to listen to still existed, like the Whiskey A Go-Go, where the Doors used to play. But it seemed like in the early 80s, those kind of bands weren't playing at these venues anymore. It was these long-haired, makeup, crazy
tight pants.
With platform shoes and
formulaic songs. Yeah.
Yeah. Three chords. So yeah, I was making fun of all that. And yes,
Nice.
I did watch MTV. So that was more fuel for the fire. But yeah,
Nice.
I was not a fan, and I was really poking fun at him.
You did a perfect job. I'll just tell that right now.
And that's one thing that I was wondering, what if this was your kind of music, or if this was just something that you did for the hell of it. So very nice.
Yeah.
Can we do the episode a little bit different? Normally I go through and have everyone read off their thoughts on the episode. I think this time we're going to go through and we're either ask you a question or make a comment on it, whichever.
Sure.
So I want to go first. Well, actually second, since Kevin went. Kevin butts in there. I thought it was very interesting that the entire episode's premise was basically subliminal messages in rock music. And I know that was a big thing in the 80s was, play the record backwards and it says, I worship Satan and this and that.
Right.
And again, at the time I was a Christian at the time. I was in the church, and that was a big thing for the youth pastors. Well, if you play this backwards, it does. Did any of that play into your thoughts when you're writing this issue? The subliminal message?
Sure. I was just jam packing this with a lot of stuff. The whole idea that Cobra was out of money and the Vipers were standing in line to get their unemployment checks. Yeah, I just stuffed it with all kinds of stuff.
Which brings up an interesting question. Do they pay into unemployment working for Cobra, I guess, is a question.
Certainly a valid question that I didn't consider. But I was just thinking it was a great idea.
Yes.
And, I didn't take it any further than the scene that I wrote in terms of thinking it out.
Right. Yeah. I thought that it doesn't really matter. It's a humorous just seeing the Cobra troopers.
Subliminal messages in heavy metal was a hardcore thing there during this time. And Judas Priest went on trial because of I think it was a suicide or something like that. They thought that they heard, and this is right when Tipper Gore and all of the people were putting those or advocating to put those parental warnings on CDs with questionable music, thus boosted sales. So yeah.
We go to Jared. Jared, any questions or thoughts for our guest?
Of course.
I know you had to go through and scribble to rewrite all your notes when I told you, we're going to have a guest.
Oh, man. First of all, I just got this in the mail the other day. And if Michael doesn't know that this exists, he needs to get one.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Yeah, my friend, the first one I got was from my friend, the artist Jamie Sullivan. He had gone to the Super 7 store in San Diego and picked one up for me because we were having lunch with Buzz Dixon the next day. So, yeah.
Okay, for our listeners at home, I'm holding up the new Super 7 Reaction Plus figure, which is Zartan as the frontman for Cold Slither with UV color changing skin. I just want to make sure he knew about that.
Real quick, follow up on that. I know this. I've heard for San Diego Comic-Con, they're supposed to have the classified Cold Slither.
Nice.
Sets.
Yep. And Skybound's putting out a Cold Slither comic book, and Raining Phoenix Music is putting out a Cold Slither album.
So are you
all come together for
That's
Michael?
cool.
Are you involved with any of that, Mike? Or are you involved? Or any
I'm dismayed to report no. Nobody from Hasbro has yet to reach out to me to have me be part of it.
Let me jump real quick. An angry
Brian,
bro.
Yeah, Brian Flynn from Super 7, who I met last summer at Joe Fest when he first told me about it. It said they, wanted me to be involved in the promotion of it, but there's nothing definite with that happening either. So, it's I can't get anybody from Hasbro to respond to my emails. So I think that's a response in itself.
Aaron, I have but two notes.
All right, go ahead.
That I'll read from my extensive series notes. I have two, and I'll end it.
Go ahead.
And Michael won't even want to respond to the first one, but he'll respond to the second. Because it's for Kevin. It's just I can't wait to hear what Kevin's thoughts on Lady Joe groupies are. So that I'm just looking forward to that later on. But I do have a note here that I think everybody loves the Cold Slither episode, right? I think the thing that's lost in the sauce is my favorite moment is actually Cobra Commander taking a free shot on that little person. Like he was like frozen with Commander just waylaid him out. Like I was like, that was hilarious and wrong all at the same time. And I loved it. And I just wanted Michael to know that everybody remembers the Cold Slither song, but I remember you writing an awesome scene where Cobra Commander beats up a little person.
Yeah, I don't remember what my inspiration was. And and the fact that to have Cobra Commander, wearing a fedora and a trench coat and sunglasses.
Oh, it's on my notes too.
Yeah,
costumes over costumes.
Yeah, but like I said, I was just kind of riding this. To me, it was a nutty episode to begin with, and as I was writing it, I just made it nuttier.
And that's one thing I was wondering was the Cobra Commander as is with the fedora. Was that something you wrote into the script, or was that something the artist said? I don't like.
No. No, it was me. Yeah.
Very nice. I love whenever him or Destro are disguised, but they still got their helmets on. It's a great choice, I think.
And not even hooded Cobra Commander, battle mask Cobra Commander, sunglasses.
Yeah. Gotta love that. David Martell, do you have a question or comment for our guest?
Yeah, I do have a question. When I wrote a little bit for TV on kid stuff, and one thing that struck me when I rewatched the episode is the number of locations that they are going to. Maybe that that's because I don't remember the other episodes enough to compare. But when I was working on TV shows, they just told me, okay, you have to pick up like 3 locations because we have to design them and you stick to it. And in this one, they go to a bar, they go into the Everglades in the Zartan's compound, and you have both versions. So you have many places, and that's actually my favorite part about this episode. I mean, all the thing is great. You have all the part with the show, the effect that it has on people, but it's the unusual places that it goes when they are into the cave. They find the treasure. You have a Cobra commander that is saying, oh, we are not diminished in any way. There's another location that we don't ever see elsewhere. So that's kind of a lot of gifts that we get in that one. So I like that very much.
Yeah, we had no restrictions whatsoever. I'm pretty sure Hasbro was footing the bill for all the animation. So no restrictions on, the number of different scenes or locations that we can have. The only guardrails that I can remember is we just couldn't kill anybody. So if we shot down a plane, you had to make sure that you saw somebody parachuting out or, jumping out of a vehicle before it explode. That's the only restrictions I remember we had.
Very nice. And Dave, our friend from Australia.
Yeah, Michael, well done. It's so funny because this episode is so famous and everyone talks about it. I'd never seen it until last night. I felt like I'd seen it. You know what I mean? Because I'm a late comer to Joe, especially the cartoon. But then I watched it last night. A lot of fun. My question was, when you said this was the first one you wrote, so how much research at the time, because you have a lot of people in it, like you have the Crimson Twins, you've got the stuff with Zartan going to the Everglades. Did you do a lot of research at the time to even write an episode? How did you have all the information? Had you just come onto the show or what?
Well, I was on staff at Sunbow, and so that we were doing multiple shows, but the 2 big shows were Transformers and G.I. Joe. At the time that I wrote this particular episode, I was just producer for Transformers and writing those scripts. But I really wanted to write for G.I. Joe. And Steve Gerber was the story editor. And Steve liked working with his friends. And most of them had been people he wrote comics with when he was working in the comic book biz. So, but Steve was also always behind schedule. So we made a deal that Flint would story edit my G.I. Joe episode. But in terms of research, I mean, I was certainly aware of the show. I think occasionally I was doing sitting in on recording sessions, which then ultimately I did for every episode once I became producer of G.I. Joe as well. So, and we had sort of a makeshift Bible with all the characters. A question I get asked a lot is about Hasbro. And I know Larry had to go through this. They didn't necessarily dictate what characters would be in a story. They had virtually no hand in approving what stories we did. Occasionally, they pop their head up and complain about a title, like 30 Seconds Over Megatron. And occasionally, as producer for both G.I. Joe and Transformers, I would get faxes that would tell me from Hasbro listing new characters that were going to be available on the toy shelves, and would we please start introducing them into episodes so that by the time they air, will be close to when they hit the shelves. So I do that a lot. But in terms of research, no, I knew what characters I want to use because I thought they were fun to write for. And I pretty much just made the story up as I went along, including when I got to, I realized with my page count, I was getting close to the end of the episode because we were writing like 60-page scripts.
Wow. Okay.
Which are always too long for even the kind of animation we were doing, because you figure in live action, 1 page is typically 1 minute. In animation, 2 pages is 1 minute. So if you're writing a 60-page script, that's 30 minutes of animation for a show that only is supposed to have 22 minutes of animation.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I came up with the Average Joe band, because I needed a way to get out of this episode.
I loved it. I've got a follow up. How was Steve Gerber? Because we've had a lot of comic book people on my show that knew him. How did you find dealing with him?
I like Steve a lot. But he was, for me personally, hard to connect with.
Right.
Also, his schedule, he had a completely different schedule than the rest of us. A lot of times, he went through a period where he wouldn't come into the office till most of us were going home.
Right.
And he'd work overnight. But then when he tried to have more regular hours, I remember we had a pool, and we would all, chip in a buck and guess what time Steve would show up and what his excuse would be for being late.
He had a condition, actually. Did you know that he had a condition where he would fall asleep? I don't know what the name of the condition is, but it came out after he passed away. He had a condition where he would fall asleep and he couldn't stay awake for too long, which affected his deadlines. Apparently. Yeah. Apparently.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I just assumed he was always, like up all night.
Yeah.
I know he certainly seemed to do battle with inanimate objects.
Right. Okay.
Because he was always talking about wanting to throw a computer out on out the window and onto the street. But he was a rock star when he came to Sunbow, having done
Howard the Duck and stuff.
Howard the Duck. That alone made him a rock star, but everything else. So, but through him, I got to meet, he and Frank Miller were friends. So Frank would come by the office. And
awesome.
Frank and Flint became friends. And then Frank was living in LA for a while. And we're both from small towns in Vermont. So we had that in common.
That's great, man. What a lot of great memories you must have in that period. Like what a golden era.
Well, it wasn't at the time. We didn't think it was, because we'd all had worked, freelance writing for other shows, and so this was just another gig.
Yeah,
and we assumed it'd be over in a couple of years. I mean, we were fortunate we had staff positions, so we didn't have to do the Hollywood hustle and go to all the other animation studios to try and get work. But we just assumed, within a couple of years, these shows would be canceled. Nobody will remember Transformers or G.I. Joe, and we'd go on to something else. And so now looking back, we now realize how lucky we were to be in the right place at the right time.
Well, that's awesome, man. And thank you for the episode, because I really enjoyed watching it last night. It was cool.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Cool.
Ryan.
Yes. I also have a page full of notes, so I'll try and keep this tight. This has my favorite Duke moment in anything G.I. Joe related, and that's when he hears Cold Slither, correctly says, "That sounds like a Cobra plot."
Yes.
And it's like, "No, Duke, it's a rock band." And he's like, "Oh, I guess I'm out of touch." And he is so human in that one moment. And it makes Duke, it makes me love Duke more than any of the action scenes where he's taken out a million Cobra Troopers. Like, that is my favorite Duke moment. So thank you for that.
But it's so clearly a Cobra. Like, the lyrics are so clear. I felt bad for him. I felt bad for Duke.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, it sounds like a Cobra." No, it's not Cobra, Duke. It's just rock music. No, Duke is
It's
right.
totally Cobra.
I also like Cobra's basically defeated in this issue, in this episode. Like, they run out of money, and for about half the episode, there is no Cobra. So I'm curious if there was anyone pointing out, like, you can't have Cobra defeated through bankruptcy for half of a random episode at the end of a season. Like, was there any talk about how that played out in the episode and how, like, concerned that might reflect badly on Cobra?
No, not at all. Because the other thing, take into consideration is because Cluster, whatever they call themselves, who distributed the show and syndicated in different markets, they couldn't guarantee that any episode would run it in order as they were written. So we couldn't really have, other than the miniseries, we couldn't have kind of a through line through the episodes. So they were all standalone stories for the most part. And that's all this was. So it didn't matter what came before or what came after. Occasionally, we might try and connect the dots and get lucky. But yeah, that was not an issue. It was just, I mean, really, because we had no idea. The only thing we knew was how well we were doing in the Nielsen ratings, and it seemed like every show we had, or at least 3 that I can think of, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Gem, were always in the top 5. So other than that, we didn't know anything about fans. We didn't get any fan mail. So really it came down to, we were writing episodes to entertain ourselves. And those of us who worked in the Sunbow office, like Flint, Buzz, myself, Doug Booth, we were trying to entertain each other. So we just like pop into someone's office and go, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And if the other person got excited, then, kind of have a little jazz riff going of spitballing ideas, and then I'd go back to my office and I'd write it all up.
I think the other thing that stood out to me when I rewatched this, because I've watched this a dozen times, I have it on VHS in case I ever see. I'd love you to autograph my copy here. But yeah, one thing that stood out is you remember it as the Dreadnoks forming a rock band, but the Dreadnoks they're barely in it. And this is a Cobra Commander episode. This is, you can't keep Cobra Commander down. He goes bankrupt. He's got his new scheme. He's like double crossing. He's keeping in touch with contacts. And it's just fascinating to me that there's like this layered logistical story of Cobra Commander finding money and stuff all throughout that is much more interesting to me as an adult than it was to me as a kid. And yet it was still an episode that stood out to me as a kid and all through my life.
Yeah, and I think I went with the Dreadnoks mostly because of the way they already looked, even though there was no suggestion whatsoever that these guys could play musical instruments or sing or even pretend to be a band. So, I mean, like I said, I was just making this crap up.
Was there any concern that the actors could sing?
No, and in fact, Zach Hoffman, who I saw about for the first time, in 40 years, I saw at a convention, Robo Toy Fest that I'll be going to in a couple of weeks. He was disappointed that they didn't ask him to sing because he felt like he could. Rob Walsh, just used his go-to guys to play the music and do the singing itself. So Zach was disappointed that he didn't have the opportunity to sing as Zartan.
I actually kind of was under the impression it was him. It sounded very similar to the Zartan voice.
No, definitely was not.
Huh.
Fooled me too. I thought it was him.
Yeah, well, I was them doing it. They did good. Whoever did the sing did a good job of impersonating Zach. I talked to Zach for the show a little back. Great guy. But
no, I think Zach would love to take credit for it, but I think he'd be the first to tell you, no, it wasn't me.
All right, I guess the last note that I'm going to end on is I love that rock and roll shows up for the last 2 seconds just in time to be part of the Average Joe band.
Yeah, I don't think I spent a lot of time picking the right Joe characters to be in the Average Joe band, but I felt like I had to use the ones I'd already introduced because
Rock and roll felt like he was on base, but either way, you chose him right because of his name. So
Yeah.
There's one thing that is funny about the ending, about the average Joe band. I was watching the cartoon in French and didn't know a word of English. I mean, I was 6, and I rewatched the ending so often. This was the very first time that I was introduced to the actual lyrics of the theme song, and it was very neat to have the Joes perform a song for us in some way.
Yes. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it at the time. I don't think I was thinking anything at the time, but how meta it is that they were singing their own theme song.
Which I guess they
That
just came
didn't-
up with on the spot.
Yeah,
Universe.
which I think, if you think about it, in their universe, that theme song didn't exist. It's
Right.
only in our universe. So, but yeah, I just needed a quick out, and if it isn't obvious, Average Joe Band was just a play on the Average White Band. So
It was a cool choice. I loved it.
Yeah, very much so. Kevin, any other questions, thoughts for?
Yeah, so I'm not going to read all the notes that I did on this, but I have to make a couple observations, and I did want to confirm something with you first, Michael. So the character of Stinky, obviously, the gangster kid, a gangster little short guy, and I loved how he was
like a gangster kid.
Yeah, I like how he was introduced, where he's like seems big, and he starts walking closer in that first perspective. It's something like straight out of a Top Secret the movie, or one of those airplane movies. I thought it was very funny. I want to ask you on this because I was curious, because when I was reminded by watching him, and I found in some trivia, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it hit home with me because I remember this show. Stinky's tone of voice, accent, and misuse of vocabulary is an homage to the Bowery Boys character Slip Mahoney. The character was made famous by Leo Gorsey in dozens of Bowery Boy films in the 40s and 50s. And I used to watch those on rerun because my dad liked them. And there was an old gang of kids from the that time. And I was wondering if that was something that inspired you, and if that's true or not.
I'm not sure it is true. Although I remember my father was a big fan of those films, but I think I was basing it more on Norm Crosby, who that was his shtick, his comedy shtick, back in the 60s and 70s.
Okay. It was also the East Side Kids too. There's kind of a carryover with those as well. So, okay. So those of you that know me, especially Jared and Aaron, know me. I'm a Raiders fan here. So, and I wanted to showcase this hat that Jared got me here, a little G.I. Joe version of my Raiders hat here. Thank you again, by the way, Jared.
My pleasure.
So I did want to mention that there's a football game that's briefly shown as the G.I. Joes are watching. And I just want to mention that the football game the Joes are watching, the teams had Raiders and 49er colors. I see Jared also wrote that note down there.
I saw it too.
So you guys know this episode aired December 4th, 1985. So in my head canon, these events are actually happening in 1985. So just go with me on this. So yes, the Raiders and the 49ers actually did play each other in 1984 and 85. And they lost to the Raiders, lost to the 49ers each time. Thank you very much.
Clearly because they threw an interception, as we saw in the
Yes. So I thought that was funny. And the other thing I wanted to mention too was that Cobra Commander tells the Crimson Twins that the song has been #1 in the charts for 20 days. So November, December of 1985, I'm kind of curious, would it have been kind of funny, or in an alternate reality, is do they do SNL as the musical act? And who would they have kicked from the lineup in December of 1985, which would have been, here we go, Mr. Mister was a musical guest hosted by John Lithgow on December 7th. December 14th, Sade was the musical guest with Tom Hanks as the host. And finally, on December 21st, the musical acts were The Cult, one of my favorite bands, and Dream Academy as Terry Garr as the host. So I'm kind of wondering, are they doing the talk show circuit during this time and making musical appearances as the musical act? What do you think, Michael?
In hindsight, I'd have to say yes, but my feeling was they could only, for lack of a better word, pretend to be those characters for a short amount of time. And I would imagine that going on a live talk show or even on, they could probably get away with it on Saturday Night Live, could get through the song without some kind of disruption. But I'm not sure they could on a talk show. But it's a great idea.
They would have been by the way, the top hits during that time, they would have been competing with We Built This City by Starship, Separate Lives by Phil Collins and Marilyn Martlin, and also Broken Wings by Mr. Mister and Say You Say Me by Lionel Richie at the top.
Tough competition.
Yeah. And I'll just kind of go out by saying that, the Dreadnoughts were happy that they were making $5 an hour. The minimum wage at that time was $3.35 an hour from 81 through 1990. And yes, concert going Scarlet, Lady J, and Covergirl, hot.
Yes,
I knew it.
Wait for that.
As soon as I saw them, I wrote that down. I gotta know Kevin's thoughts.
Of course, they're hot, but so actually, I'm surprised that Zartan's paying them more than minimum wage. Actually, I'm a little impressed by that. So, yeah, Jared, your thoughts, questions, concerns?
One more simple question for Michael, and I will bow out. As a fellow artist, Michael, when I look at my art pieces, sometimes I say, I wish I'd done this or I wish I hadn't done that. When you watch this episode, is there something you wish you had done or wish you hadn't done?
Ooh. Well, I haven't had access to the script since I left Vermont. All my original hard copies are in a box in a storage unit in Vermont.
Can I get the address on that?
And I haven't really seen the episode in its entirety. Certainly for a number of years, I didn't see it all. I've sort of been forced to watch it in the last couple of years now that I'm getting invited to conventions. I don't know if there's anything I would change. I just know I have a difficult time watching some of these episodes because they're kind of I cringe at some of the dialogue, or I cringe at some of the animation. I can in fact tell you I've never seen the two Deke episodes I wrote, because I had already worked for Deke at one time and I knew how bad their animation was, and I didn't want to. I love looking at storyboards, but I didn't want to have my heart broken by watching the episodes. So I've never seen them. So yeah, it's tough for me to watch episodes of shows that I've written, because it's not the image I had in my head when I was writing. And just in general, as a writer, been doing this for almost 50 years. If I can read something I wrote and it feels like somebody else wrote it, then I know I succeeded. Does that make any sense?
It does. It's interesting perspective, but I'm glad that
because I know all my tricks.
When you can trick yourself, that's when you're at your happiest.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic answer. I'm just glad that we've reached the point where us 40, 50-year-old guys with podcasts can help put some light back on this wonderful stuff that you created for us. So thank you.
And if you
like I said, for decades,
if you do want to watch it, I can lend you a VHS copy.
Yeah, like I said, for decades, I just assumed that I had no fans of any of the episodes I wrote, that they were everyone's least favorites. And, my small contributions to the franchise just meant nothing. So the last 2 years of being invited to conventions has been eye-opening. It's been really enjoyable. I love meeting the fans and it took me a while to have to sort of, I had to dig down deep for memories of that time because I hadn't had to think about it for a while. And now I'm fortunate enough that I've told a lot of stories multiple times. Now all I have to do is remember the last time I told it.
Yeah, and I've said this before. You're not the only one that has. I haven't seen the Deke series yet either. And is it pronounced Deke?
Deke, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I swap back and forth between that and another way of pronouncing it, but that's another story entirely.
David, do you know something different?
No, I pronounce it either Deke or Dick. But
yeah.
And that's
well, David Martel was shaking his head, so I was wondering if because they're a French Canadian company. So
So David, do you have any?
We knew when we were working for them, we knew them as Deke. Do you know something else?
No, I knew them as Deke, but I just figured that maybe like we do on our part, we do not pronounce it Deke.
How do you?
I don't want to say it. I don't want to appear rude. But when we say that in French, since that is not our language, we just read that and it sounds like the other things. But there's no intention of saying a bad word.
like the French word for seal. Yes.
Seal.
For seal.
It sounds like a swear word.
Sea lion. Yes.
PHOQUE.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I understand
I guess I'm the only one that grew up knowing what seal in French is.
No, I didn't think about that. It was about a portion of anatomy. As I mentioned, we said it that way naturally because that's what we saw. But for us, using this word that just had no actual meaning.
Yeah, see, I swap back and forth through the two pronunciations just because, again, to follow up on Ryan, yeah, I can barely speak English, let alone French. So, but yeah, so as I was saying, I haven't seen the Deke series because I saw the first 5-part, the Operation, whatever it is, Dragonfire. Thank you.
Yeah,
I saw that, but then I'd moved out of my mom's house and I didn't realize it was still going on, so I missed it. And then I picked it up on DVD here several years back. But by then I was doing the show. I'm like, you know what? From what I hear from people, it's not a great follow-up. So I think I'm going to wait until I actually get to those episodes of the show to actually watch them. So, and you're just kind of confirming what I've heard. So,
well, I just saw it as more Joe stories.
Right.
So it's obviously not the same quality.
And that's what I heard from a lot of fans was they don't focus so much on the quality of the animation and maybe even the storytelling. It's just more Joe's. Right. It's just like, I wrote all the PSAs for the G.I. Joe series and, they're not genius, but what I learned from the fans is it was just an extra minute of G.I. Joe and that's all they cared about.
So
and we didn't have that in French.
Oh,
at all. Yeah.
Oh, really?
We didn't even have the toy commercials.
Oh.
We didn't. It was because of the regulations that we had at the time.
Didn't even have half the battle.
Savoir c'est 2 minutes de la combat.
What you said, Ryan?
Si tu le sais, c'est 2 minutes de la combat. No one's half the battle.
So you wrote all the PSAs, Michael? Is that correct?
Yeah, apparently all but the first 3 or 4.
Did you sit down and write them all at one time, or how did that happen? How did the PSAs work out?
I think over a few days, I think I did because Sumbo didn't want to pay me to write them. They said, "Well, you're the producer of the show; it's your job." I went, "Great." So I wanted to just get them done, so I just knocked them out over the course of a few days. The same thing with I created Special Mission Brazil and Captain Claymore, and Hasbro and Sunbow didn't pay me for that. They just said, "Oh, we got this thing with Toys R Us. It's going to be 5 characters. 4 of them are just going to be repaints. 1 is going to be made out of spare parts. We want you to come up with a character and write his file card. And by the way, we're going to have a audio cassette in the package. So we want to write the script for the story, and you got to come up with a concept name for the package. And so not only did they not pay me for that because I was producer of the show, they didn't even give me a box set.
Oh, gee.
Really? So you came up with the Special Missions Brazil name and everything, did you?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that sucks, man. These corporates are just determined to screw you at any opportunity, it seems. You know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so this, and I didn't think about it too much at the time. I mean, I could have gone to Toys R Us and bought one for $15 or something.
Sure.
But now, 40 years later, now I'm doing these conventions, because I didn't save anything other than my scripts. So now, for my personal archives, I'd like to have samples of stuff that I created or had a hand in creating. But Special Mission Brazil box I don't have, and people are selling them for $1,500, which for me is, I don't want to spend $1,500 for something I created.
No, definitely not. No. Yeah, I hear you there, and it's a sad story that unfortunately it repeats a lot.
Yeah. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to get the Cold Slither box set that's coming out, at San Diego Comic-Con, because
Angry Letter, Hasbro,
it's
sucking.
Because they don't seem to want to talk to me.
Yeah,
and I'm not going to go down there on my own dime.
Right.
And this Hasbro Pulse thing, it seems like everything sells out before you can complete your order. So
yeah,
it's just a crime that the people who come up with the concept don't at the very least, get the comped copy. At the least,
Agree.
You know
Yeah.
Anyway,
you gotta take care of the creators, man. That's what you gotta do. Yeah.
Well, even if I say, Michael said, there's just like kind of a throwaway episode for him, but without these episodes, whether it's a well thought out, or year planned episode, or just something bangs out, you wouldn't have a show without these great episodes, and especially, I say, these episodes that turn out to be one of the greatest episodes of the series. We've talked on the show before how the tone between the comic and the cartoon is very different. How Larry had, in quotes, easier time of making everything fit together since he was the sole writer, whereas the show, like you said, they need to be one and done. They may not show them the right order, and
I mean, it was a sausage factory. I mean, every Friday I had to make sure that I had a script that I could send to Marvel Productions so they could assign storyboard artists to start working over the weekend. Now, sometimes it'd be one storyboard artist to do all 3 acts, but depending on schedule, sometimes it'd be 3 different artists, and they'd each get their own act to do. But every Friday I got to deliver a script to, and that's how I ended up writing Ninja Holiday. I think it was Jerry Conway. Jerry was always late, and I called Jerry up like on a Wednesday, and I said, "Hey, Jerry, you gonna have your script ready for me?" He goes, "Well, do you want it on time or do you want it good?" And I always tell Jerry, "Jerry, I want both." But there was one. It was a Thursday night. I didn't have the script. I knew I was going to have to send something to Marvel on Friday. So I literally, after everybody went home from Sunbow, I stayed overnight and I wrote a script from scratch. Again, made it up as I went along. And that script ended up being Ninja Holiday.
Wow.
Very nice.
And so I, started like, 10 o'clock at night, and I finished about 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And that would be the script I could send into Marvel.
Blood, sweat, and tears, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we had a lot of fun, but we also, it was assembly line. We had to, doing 65 half hours of Transformers and G.I. Joe and Gem, and we had to generate a lot of product.
Yeah. I've had Jerry on my show. A nice guy. Did you work a lot?
Oh,
with
yeah,
him?
it's a great guy. I love
Lovely
Jerry.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Did you
love
work
Jerry.
work a lot with him on the animated stuff? I know he did a bit.
Yes. He worked a lot on GI Joe. I don't think he wrote for Transformers, but again, it's because he and Steve had been friends in New York. Back in the 70s when they both broke into comics. And I think at the time Jerry was co-writing with his then wife Carla.
Right.
They worked as a team.
I know he worked on Jake and the Fat Man. He went on to work for Law and Order as well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, his
really did well.
Great career. And the fact he can claim he created the Punisher. I mean, who wouldn't want that on their resume?
100%, and that was one of the main things I spoke to him about. But yeah, and I also asked him a lot of questions. On Jake and the Fat Man, I forget the guy's name. Is it William Conrad, the big guy?
Yes.
And he said when he would do a scene, where he would sit is where they'd have to shoot. Wherever William Conrad sat is where they were like, okay, we're going from here. Interesting.
Yeah, I love Jerry because he created Firestorm, but that's another story. That's a different podcast, though. But Kevin, did you have any questions or thoughts or anything for Mike?
I just want to say, Mike, thank you for coming on and being patient, of course, during the comic book part of it. And I just want to say,
because I felt like I was a terrible guest. I had
no. It's, I appreciate you sticking in there, and maybe you learned something. But I just want to say too, thank you for when you are invited, taking advantage of that and meeting the fans. And I'll be honest with you, I think Cold Slither has become a lot more popular more recently. And a lot of it has to do with just the nostalgia of people wanting to go back and read these things and have cool T-shirts that remind us of a good time of our childhood. And you had one of the more memorable cartoon episodes that we would watch on repeat coming home from after school and wanting to forget about the rest of the day and touching on a genre of music that I myself did love and was part of. And I got the joke. I thought it was funny. I thought it was great. And I hope that you meet some more cool fans that are just as appreciative as I am. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I really enjoy meeting the fans and hanging out with them. I think at the first event I went to, and we're, after the show's over for the day, we're all in the lobby, having drinks and talking, and somebody came up to me and said, "Oh man, I can't believe you're hanging out with us." And I said, "Well, I can't imagine why I wouldn't." It never occurred to me that I'd come to this event, and the only time you would see me would be when I'm on the floor behind my table, and then I'm going to go hide in my room for the rest of the time. Just
and
never occurred to me to be that way.
Your stories how some of these creators are very much withdrawn, or they'll do their little bit and then I'm out of here, I got things to do. So it's always good to hear stories about people like yourself that actually I'll go and have a beer with the guy, it don't matter.
Oh yeah, I have drinks at the bar, we go out to dinner. I enjoy hanging out with folks that I meet at the conventions.
Very nice.
Cool,
Dave,
man.
do you have any other questions or comments or anything for our guest?
Oh, I think I've wrapped it. I just want to say thanks so much. And as someone who only watched it last night but knew it by reputation, perfect. Loved it. It lived up to what it was in my mind, man.
Oh, good. Because it easily could have gone the other way.
No, I enjoy it. I think it's fun. And it's good to have you had a sense of humor about it. And like Kevin was saying, kind of a bit of satire and mixing it all in. I thought it was a great episode. Yeah.
Ryan, any other questions, thoughts or anything?
Just also want to thank you. I love hearing the stories about the creative process, the production side. This was incredibly insightful, and I very much appreciate you taking your time.
And David.
So, Ryan, do you live in LA?
No, I live in Montreal. I'm
okay. All right.
Just like Baxter.
Somebody I heard was talking about the 405, so I thought
that's me. I live up in Santa
okay.
Barbara. Yeah, I live up in Santa Barbara. So yeah.
Kevin's in Santa Barbara. I'm up in near Fresno.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
I'm a lot closer to Vermont than I am to LA.
Yes. Everyone else
you
away.
Are, yeah.
Everyone else is further away. I know Jared's back east somewhere. But yeah, everyone else is elsewhere. David. Martel.
Yeah, I am actually closer to Ryan. I am in Quebec City. Oh, French Canadian, obviously.
Yeah, Quebecois.
Yeah. And I also wanted to thank you for taking the time to be here. I didn't even know that you were coming in, so I was very
Oh.
surprised. And I wanted to say that this episode was very influential for me. It's one of the episodes that I like the most of all of them. So thank you for all the work that you did on this show and the Transformers as well. I mean, like many other great people who worked on these things, you helped forge our childhood. So thank you very much for all the love that you put in there. I mean, I know that there's a paycheck at the end of it, but you had to do to take the time to make it good. So as you mentioned before, if you rushed it, it would not have been good. So when you take the time,
Mhm.
oh, it's all great stuff.
Well, again, I'm glad that you got so much enjoyment out of it because, as I said, for decades, I just assumed it was everybody's least favorite episode. So it's it's quite it's validating to hear these stories.
And I just want to chime everyone else's side. I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your day to be here with us. I appreciate you. You know, when I reached out to you on Facebook and asked you about, if I can make it, I'd love to do that. So, and I'm glad, and that's why I didn't say too much. I wasn't quite sure first you're going to make it or not because you had something else going on beforehand. So again, I'm glad you're able to find.
I was watching the Formula One race from Monaco, but it was on a little. It was on at 7:00 my time, so it was over in plenty of time for me to make this.
Well, I'm glad. And like I say, kind of like what Kevin was said, back in the 80s, again, we were all kids for the most part. And GI, we had a hard day at school or whatever's going on, especially these great, because some of the episodes of the cartoon was less great than other ones. And you had other episodes like this one here, which were fantastic. And it was great to come home for, a hard day at school and be able to relax and have a good time watching the cartoon. And especially like the music video on here, the song you did. Yeah, I say growing up, I was into rap music. I wasn't into rock. So I came at it from a different angle than Kevin came at it. But again, as a rap fan, I enjoyed what I got. And I thought it was great. The song you wrote for it. Now, that's one thing I always wondered was, did you write that or did you guys have to hire somebody to come in and write this? So it's great hearing that story.
Yeah, again, happy accident. It was never my intention to write it. And so now I'm kind of glad I was forced to. and hopefully when the record comes out in July, hopefully I'll get songwriter credit for it. Because
100%, yeah.
Because according to when the single dropped, according to BMI, when I talked to them, it was I think Zartan was listed as the writer of the song, but I don't think anybody at the record company knew because I had talked to them. But before I talked to them, I don't think anyone at the record company knew that I wrote it because at the end credits of the episode, there's no songwriter credit.
Oh, okay. So yeah, and I say if I can get you back on when we do the other episodes you wrote, I'd love to have you back on.
Sure.
Just a couple episodes.
And we can and maybe talk about the coil, which I also created.
Oh, did you? Wow. Very nice.
I created in the final episode of season 2, and Buzz Dixon was going to leave Sunbow and wanted me to become the story editor. And so we pitched to Hasbro the whole idea of the coil as being season 3.
Oh,
and they loved the idea, but then they decided we don't want to do a season 3.
Did they decide, or did they lose so much money on the movies that they put out that year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to Buzz a little about the ending of this, and he didn't realize until the last minute that was going to end, but Yeah, I'd definitely love to have you back on. Yeah, definitely talk about, maybe what you guys had planned for the future of G.I. Joe that we didn't get instead of Deke. But but yeah, thank you very much for that. I can't say enough. I appreciate you taking time out to talk with me. I love hearing from creators, and you're a great guy. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, again, thank you. I appreciate the fact that what I did you think was worthy enough to even invite me on. So,
most definitely.
Thanks.
Well, thanks, man.
And again, we talked earlier about you worked on the PSAs. So give me just 1 second. I do these at the end of every show.
Bobby, my stomach hurts. Oh, I'll give you some of Dad's medicine. It's real strong stuff.
That's a prescription for danger.
Doc!
Never take medicine without a grown-up present. You could do more harm than good.
What should we do?
If you can, wait for your parents. Or if it's serious, ask a neighbor for help.
Hey, Mom's home.
Now you'll get help.
And now we know what to do next time.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Yeah, it's funny. I think the PSA is about as famous for G.I. Joe as anything else for the cartoon, because everyone remembers the PSA show.
I must have wrote over 20 of those.
Fantastic.
That's impressive. Yeah. I enjoy them.
Did you come up with the knowing is half the battle tag?
I thought I did. And here's the reason why. At the time, NBC had their own PSA campaign, and it always ended on, I think, something like "the more you know."
Right.
And knowing is half the whatever has been a phrase that's been around for a while. So I believe that I came up with it. I know Ron Friedman claims that he came up with it when he was in architectural school, which, and Ron had nothing to do with these PSAs. But Tim Finn, who I respect a great deal as a G.I. Joe historian, had interviewed somebody at Griffin McCall, the advertising agency that created Sunbow, and said there was a guy there who claims that he wrote the first 4, which I have no memory of anyone else writing them, and that he came up with that. And I can't, I'm not comfortable trying to dispute that. So my memory is different, but I'll just leave it at that.
And that's not uncommon for about 5 different stories, over an origin, something, and time as well. I think a lot of people start to get, they tell a story a few times, and then 40 years later, that's their truth,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, Kevin, if people want to hear more about you, where can they go?
Please check out the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube, and also for all the audio podcasts as well. Just search for that at fpnet.podbean.com. I'm a co-host of several of the shows there. Like I said, the Hair Metal Podcast, the Highlander Podcast, our movie podcast, Couch Potato Theater. We have Star Trek and Star Wars on the network as well, Doctor Who, and we also do Time Warp. We just talk about an entire year of movies, 1 month at a time, and we take you back and let you know what all the pop culture is surrounding those movies. And this year we are talking about 1990. So check it out. You can find me on X. You can find me on Instagram, Letterbox, Blue Sky at Spartan Phoenix or Spartan_Phoenix.
And Dave.
Yeah, keep it simple. Signal of Doom. We're broadcasting weekly. We just had James DeMatteis on the show, and we have Joe Kelly this week, and we are all guns ahead. And talking about Jerry Conway, I want to reach out to Jerry again because he's always a lot of fun. So yeah, check out Signal of Doom, guys.
And Ryan, do you got anything going on besides the Energon protocols?
There's the G.I. Joe role-playing game. We've got a new book that's going to be announced on June 6th, so I'm not sure if this will be released by then, but in any case, the G.I. Joe role-playing game is still going strong from Renegade Game Studios. I continue to contribute to the majority of the books, and I'm very excited for people to play the game and let me know what they think.
This will probably come out in July at this point because I got delayed some point. So
okay, so then by then people will have heard what the next book is, but right now I can't say.
Right. No, yeah, definitely. Can't, yeah, don't want to get you in trouble. So, but no, as I comment when we play the game, I love role playing game. I'm glad, here 40 years later, we've got a role playing game we can play. And yeah, you guys have done a fantastic job on creating the game. Thank you very much for your work on that, my friend. And David Martell.
Yeah, I'm kind of an oddball here. I'm not into high profile stuff like streaming or something like that. So I do write after action reports on my blog that you see down there. So G.I. Joe RPG Stories. You can find that at, it's weird in English, Le Marteau. So LEMARTEAU.wordpress.com. I'm just a typical game master with his private game. I treat it and see it like I'm doing a silent podcast. So it all depends on what the players do, but I have fun, a lot of fun, and I'm trying very hard to make that engaging. So if you want to take a look, I will be happy to have any comments on that. And I am often writing or posting stuff on the Renegade Games GI Joe official page. So if you want to come have a chat, the overall goal is to keep the thing going. I mean, there's people like Ryan who are doing more books, but since it has been not silent for a while, but I got worried. Would there be any more books? So I'm trying to keep that alive, to keep people talking about this great game that I enjoy very much.
Very much so. And Mike, do you have anything going on or?
Yeah, I got a few upcoming conventions. Sunday, June 8th, I'll be at Robo Toy Fest, which is in Burbank, California. Then I think June 12th through the 15th, I'll be at BotCon in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And then June 27th, 28th, 29th, I'll be at DFW Joe Show in Texas. Is that Irving? Grapevine? Somewhere around there. And then the only other thing I have scheduled for the remainder of the year would be Joe Fest in Atlanta in September.
Very nice.
I just want to mention regarding Joe Fest, it's become the really big Joe convention. It's a great little convention. Yeah.
Did I say Joe Fest?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I won't be at Joe Fest this year.
Okay.
The DFW Joe Show in Texas is where I'll be, which is like, I think the week after.
Yeah, the Joe Fest in was it south of Atlanta is a really good.
It's in Augusta. Yeah, I went last year. Had a great time.
Yeah, it's kind of taken over as the premier Joe show. So yeah, it's really cool. Check it out.
And real quick, I forgot that I didn't have my PowerPoint up, my slide up. I forgot about this. Kevin.
Yeah, so I just want to show this to you guys real quick. This is a screenshot of the Mona Lisa that was found in Cobra's desert hideout. And it was messing with my brain because it reminded me of someone. And I had to go to my wife saying, does this Mona Lisa remind you of someone? She says, oh, yeah, it looks like Lisa Kudrow, Phoebe from Friends. And now I can't get it. Now I can't get it out of my head. What say you, Michael?
Well, I see it now. I don't think Friends was on the air in 1985.
No.
So that's
so she stole that look.
I don't know which Japanese studio did this animation, but that's their version of the Mona Lisa.
That's funny. Anyway,
I was going to myself. I forgot about that one. So real quick, one more thing I want to do before we leave. This for next episode.
Okay, Hawk, it's operational. Like taking candy from a baby. Get the shuttle complex ready for launch. 2, 1. We have liftoff. We're separating from the booster. And Joe needs help. We got him. Now let's get Cobra. Yo, Joe. Be a real American hero. Follow
The Adventures of G.I. Joe in Marvel Comics. Joe, Joe!
So that'll be next month's episode. And
now, was that a commercial? Whoops.
What's that?
Oh, I'm not muted. Was that a commercial for the comic book?
Yeah, that was a commercial for the comic book.
Okay. Because at Sunbow, I don't remember ever doing that version of Cobra Commander.
Yeah, no, that That version came out with Deke.
Okay. All right.
They used that. I don't know how much they used him in Deke. I know that battle armor first appeared in the Operation Dragonfire, and it was Cobra Commander, not Fred, in there. So
no, and that was Armored Cobra Commander, wasn't it? It looked like him anyway.
Yeah, that was Armored Cobra Commander. And yeah, I say Hasbro, not Hasbro. Sunbow never used that version.
Well, Sunbow produced those commercials. So that is what he would have looked like if they had done another season.
For the cartoon, they never did. For the actual cartoon, Cobra Commander and the battle armor didn't show up. He showed up with the Deke version. But yeah, Sunbow did do these ads. So
I just wanted to add about the battle armor in the Deke version. At one time, he removes a mask that he was wearing, and under the mask was the helmet of the battle armor.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was great stuff.
Yeah. Well, so unless anyone has any thoughts or comments or anything, if I can get everyone give me a Yo Joe one at a time, when I get down here, I can piece it together at the end. So remember, until next episode, remember, knowing is half the battle. Yo Joe. Kevin?
Yo Joe.
Dave?
Yo Joe.
Ryan?
Yo Joe.
David?
Yo Joe.
If I get one for you, Michael.
Yo Joe.
Fantastic. And I want to thank you guys very much for taking time out of your day to talk with me. And I want to thank everyone that listens to the podcast, all the people out there in YouTube land. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate everybody. Until next month, that's going to do it. So you guys can hang on 1 moment. I'm going to play the outro.
G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, is available monthly on iTunes, Stitcher, and at headspeaks.com. All characters and stories are owned and trademarked by their respective owners. We claim no ownership other than our opinions. All audio and images are used for entertainment purposes and falls under fair use. We make no money from this headcast. For more of the monthly G.I. Joe, check out the IDW series. For the stories we're covering, look for the comics and trade paperbacks. Let us know what you think. Send us an email letting us know your thoughts. Joe's dismissed.